Chapter 880. Jiang Chen wouldn't give young Master Zhu Ming any chance to negotiate. In Jiang Chen's eyes, young Master Zhu Ming's group and Farewell Valley only had one choice, and that was to agree to his conditions. Otherwise, with Jiao Qinsui's personality, Farewell Valley wouldn't live long. Young Master, we can only do this now. Sigh. It's all our fault for being too ambitious. The elders sighed deeply, feeling even more regretful. They really regretted it, especially young Master Zhu Ming. If he hadn't come up with this idea, they wouldn't have fallen to this state, and Farewell Valley wouldn't have been implicated. As a matter of fact, when Kunlun Mountain, Ally Heavenly School, and several other top sects retreated, you should have realized that the Nine Heavens sect wasn't ordinary, Jiang Chen said. It's a pity that your ambition made you lose your mind. Young Master Zhu Ming opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. He knew that Jiang Chen was right. It was because of his ambition that things had turned out this way. After a few breaths, young Master Zhu Ming and the others swore, agreeing to Jiang Chen's conditions. At this moment, Jiao Qinsui still hadn't returned. Obviously, he was discussing with Jiao Tian's sect. Do you know, as the young master of Farewell Valley, I'm not suitable for cultivations? At this moment, young Master Zhu Ming spoke slowly. His eyes were filled with pain and helplessness. In the eyes of outsiders, he was the high and mighty young master of Farewell Valley and the future successor of Farewell Valley. But only he knew that from the moment he started cultivating, his fate was already decided. His talent was extremely poor, and he wasn't suitable for cultivation at all. If Farewell Valley hadn't spent a lot of money and resources to help him reforge his talent, young Master Zhu Ming might not have been able to become a true god. But so what if he became a true god? Young Master Zhu Ming knew better than anyone that his talent couldn't be improved, and his cultivation could only reach the supreme god realm at most in this lifetime. Once he reached the supreme god realm, he wouldn't be able to improve at all. In this world, the strong were respected. If young Master Zhu Ming's cultivation could only reach the supreme god realm, then it would be difficult for him to inherit the position of Farewell Valley Master. Even if he inherited the position, he wouldn't be able to stay in the Valley Master position for long. Because of this, young Master Zhu Ming had even greater ambitions. He wanted to use other methods to prove himself and continuously expand his strength, thus stabilizing his position in Farewell Valley. Originally, he thought that he would be able to hold on to the power of the Nine Heavens sect and the Nine Heavens court, stabilizing and even completely controlling Farewell Valley. But who would have thought that something like this would happen? At this moment, young Master Zhu Ming seemed to be in low spirits. His eyes were hollow as he talked about his past. Jiang Chen didn't disturb him. He listened quietly with an expressionless face. No one knew what he was thinking. After half an incense stick of time, young Master Zhu Ming finally stopped and smiled bitterly. If I wasn't the young master of Farewell Valley, I'm afraid that in the eyes of many people, I would be trash. A world where the strong preys on the weak. Jiang Chen whispered and asked, then do you know what it means to be the strong? What about God King Tianshun from 3,000 years ago? How powerful was he? But had he become a sovereign? In the end, he was still ambushed. In the past, those who controlled the continent of the Nine Clouds, how many of them died peacefully? Why is that? Jiang Chen asked consecutively. Young Master Zhu Ming was stunned and didn't know how to answer. True strength is not only determined by the level of one's cultivation. There are many other factors. Jiang Chen said, personal strength is one factor, but there is another very important factor, and that is how many people around you are willing to work for you. How many people have disregarded the taboo of the world and slaughtered everyone because of one sentence from you? How many people dare to bear the eternal infamy, traverse the east, west, north, and south, step on corpses, and dye themselves in rivers of blood? And how many people are willing to wait for your return? And how many people have placed all their hopes and dreams on a single person? At this point, Jiang Chen's expression turned serious as he said, a true powerhouse will gather all the conditions. Not only will they be revered, but they will also be praised by all. Why are you telling me all this? However, what made Jiangchen speechless was that young Master Zhu Ming still didn't understand what he was saying. Well, to put it simply, as long as you know enough strong cultivators and your connections are deep enough, then even if you were just an ordinary person, you will still be a strong cultivator. Jiangchen said simply. Oh, if you had said that earlier, I would have understood. Young Master Zhu Ming rolled his eyes. How would I know that you were so stupid? Jiangchen said exasperatedly. Swoosh! Suddenly, there was the sound of something breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, Jiu Qiansui arrived with a man and a woman. The woman was Jiu Tian, the princess of the Jiu Tian dynasty. As for the young man, Jiangchen had never seen him before. However, he was quite good-looking and had a trace of imperial qi between his eyebrows. He was obviously from the imperial family. That's him? At this moment, the young man looked at Jiangchen. When he opened and closed his eyes, there seemed to be layers of clouds overlapping. Prince, that's him. Jiu Qiansui said softly. If you can break the seal, even if I don't swear an oath, I will repay you. The young man said, Prince of the Jiu Tian dynasty, Jiu Tianzhong, disciple of the neighboring school, silly. Jiangchen clasped his hands and said mockingly, Jiu Qiansui, look at Prince. Look at how nice his words are. Unlike you, you keep saying that you want to kill me. Brother, you can't believe him. This guy is too deceitful. Jiu Tian puffed up his cheeks, his eyes filled with hatred. You have to consider the bigger picture, Jiu Tianzhong said. However, in Jiu Tianzhong's eyes, the layers of clouds were constantly changing, and there was a hidden sharpness hidden within them. After 3 breaths, Jiu Tianzhong said, My sister and I can swear an oath, including Jiu Qiansui. But there is a prerequisite. You have to break the 4 gods' heaven-extinguishing formation. Of course. Jiangchen smiled and said then, Swear an oath. Don't worry, if I can't break the 4 gods' heaven-extinguishing formation, the blood oath you made will not take effect. We naturally know. Jiu Tianzhong nodded. Then, Jiu Tianzhong was the first to swear an oath, followed by Jiu Qiansui. After all, even his own prince had sworn an oath. How could he, as a eunuch, not do anything else? However, Jiu Tianxia was unwilling. She glared at Jiangchen fiercely and gnashed her teeth. She wanted to swallow Jiangchen alive. Sister, our clansman is still sealed. Jiu Tianzhong said in a low voice, I know you have some grudges with him, but they are all small fights. It's nothing. Maybe one day, when the grudges are resolved, you can still become friends with him. Hearing this, Jiu Tianxia glared and said, Resolve grudges? Become friends with him? Impossible in this lifetime, unless he can poke a hole in the sky. Chapter 881. Jiu Tian was furious. Her brother actually agreed to Jiangchen just like that. In her heart, Jiangchen was unforgivable and deserved to die. However, Jiu Tianzhong was the prince of the Jiu Tian Empire and the emperor of the Jiu Tian Empire in the future. Although she was a princess, she couldn't win against Jiu Tianzhong. Jiu Tianzhong also understood that the most important thing was to release the people of the Jiu Tian Empire. Fine, I'll swear it. Jiu Tianzhong pouted and swore the blood oath with a face full of anger. Then, the 3 of them looked at Jiangchen in unison. Their eyes were filled with doubt and murderous intent. If Jiangchen lied to them, then the blood oath wouldn't take effect. At that time, Jiangchen would die. However, they also felt that Jiangchen wasn't lying. After all, this was a matter of life and death. Jiangchen had no reason to lie to them. The demon sealing formation of the 4 directions absorbs the power of the 4 divine beasts and evolves into the 4 gods' heaven-extinguishing formation. Jiangchen whispered and slowly walked towards the cliff. When he was 3 feet away from the bronze door, he stopped and looked to the east, the azure dragon of the east, the black tortoise of the north, the white tiger of the west, and the vermilion bird of the south. These are the so-called 4 divine beasts. The demon sealing formation of the 4 directions is a formation formed by the power of the 4 divine beasts. However, when it evolves into the 4 gods' heaven-extinguishing formation, the 4 divine beasts will also change. Change into what? Zhu Qiansui asked. Of course, the four gods. Jiang Qin pointed above. Those are the true gods. They're the first batch of cultivators after the creation of the world. Their existence is imprinted in the Tao and in the hearts of future living beings. They are even engraved in the heavens and earth. I don't know if the four gods really exist. However, from what I know, the so-called four gods refer to the four elements of wind, rain, thunder, and fire. At this point, Jiang Qin smiled in a relaxed manner. Now that I understand the principles of the four gods' heaven-extinguishing formation, it will be much easier to break the seal. Then why aren't you hurrying? Zhou Tianzhong urged. Let me confirm again. If I really manage to break the four gods' heaven-extinguishing formation, are you sure you will keep your promise? Jiang Qin asked. Isn't that obvious? The blood oath has already been made. What else do you want? Zhou Tian was furious. Hurry up. All right. Jiang Qin said. Then the god power in his body burst out. He turned into a ball of light and landed 3 feet away from the bronze door. 3 balls of light flickered, exactly 3 feet apart, floating above the 4 divine beast statues. God is watching us from above. I'd rather believe it than not. Jiang Qin's expression suddenly became serious, and his hands repeatedly formed a seal. In just a few breaths of time, Jiang Qin's body seemed like it was leaking air. The divine power in his body was rapidly draining away. At the same time, the radiance floating above the 4 mythological beast statues gradually lit up. However, this was still not enough. After a few breaths of time, Jiang Qin's face darkened, and he said, My cultivation is low, and my divine power is not enough. Then what should we do? Zhou Qiansui asked hurriedly. I'll borrow your divine power. Jiang Qin's face turned pale. It was as if his divine power was being swallowed up. Zhou Qiansui was very decisive when he heard this. He struck out with his palm, and his rich and pure divine power was channeled into Jiang Qin's body. In an instant, Jiang Qin felt as if there was a volcano erupting in his body. An endless stream of divine power gushed out, exploding outside his body like clouds and mist. His hands continued to form seals, and his divine power gathered. Finally, it gathered above the 4 mythological beast statues and formed 4 green lamps. Step forward, look at the gods. 1 lamp returns. 2 lamps returns. 3 lamps do not return, nor return. 4 lamps do not return, nor return. Jiang Qin kept whispering. This was an incantation he had seen in an ancient book. It was the key to breaking the 4 gods' heaven-extinguishing formation. It moved. It disappeared. After a dozen breaths, cracks appeared on the 4 mythological beast statues. The black tortoise statue turned into powder and disappeared. Then the vermilion bird statue and the green dragon statue shattered. Finally, only the white tiger statue was left. It's done. After the 3 statues disappeared, Jiang Qin heaved a sigh of relief. He pointed at the remaining white tiger statue and said, I'll leave this thing to you guys. What do you mean? We don't know how to break the formation. Zhou Tianzhong and the other 2 were dumbfounded. There was still 1 statue left. Could it be that the seal had been broken? 3 gods as one. This white tiger statue is the formation eye of the seal. Jiang Qin explained, later, it will turn into a real white tiger. You guys just have to defeat it and break it. Just break it? Zhou Tianzhong asked. Of course not. Don't you see that the bronze door is not open yet? Jiang Qin said snappily, 1 step at a time. Roar! As soon as he said that, the white tiger statue suddenly shook. Then, light and light appeared on its body. In a few breaths' time, it turned into a white tiger. Without any explanation, the white tiger roared and pounced on Jiang Qin, who was closest to it. Oh my God! Hurry up and attack. If I die, don't even think about opening the bronze door. Jiang Qin's expression changed. He screamed and hid behind Zhou Tianzhong. Of course, it was not that Jiang Qin wanted to hide there, but Zhou Tianzhong and Zhou Qiansui had already attacked. Now, there were not many places to hide nearby. The one closest to Jiang Chun was, of course, Jiu Tianzhong. How shameless are you? A big man hiding behind a little girl like me. Jiu Tianzhong looked terrible and kept retreating. That was because the white tiger's strength was at the peak of the Lord God level. In a battle of this level, the slightest ripple could easily kill her. Jiu Qiansui and your brother don't know how to control their strength. If I don't stand behind you, what if they accidentally hurt me? Jiang Chun said seriously. As he said that, Jiang Chun seemed to have thought of something. He grabbed Jiu Tianzhong's shoulder and half pulled and half pushed her in front of young Master Zhu Ming and the rest. Hey, the two of you watch out. Your princess is here. Don't let the ripples of the battle reach here. Someone will die. Jiang Chun shouted at Jiu Qiansui and Jiu Tianzhong, who were fighting in the air. Despicable. Using my sister as a shield? Jiu Qiansui and Jiu Tianzhong were furious. However, the white tiger in front of them was very powerful. Even if the two of them joined forces, they would not be able to resist it. It's just a beast. Suddenly, a shout rang out from the depths of Jiu Tianzhong's sect. Immediately after, a ray of sword light tore through the void like a silver river and slashed apart the white tiger energy. The violent sword chi did not want. Instead, it turned into a gust of wind and surrounded the white tiger. Under the reversal of the flow, the white tiger was instantly turned into nothingness. Not even a trace of it was left. Chapter 882. With a single slash, a peak lord-level white tiger was reduced to dust. At this moment, Jiang Chun was shocked. No one knew better than him how dreadful the power contained in that sword attack was. The God King. Jiang Chun was shocked. He was all too familiar with this kind of power. Only a divine king could unleash an attack of this level. That's a half-step God King, right? Nine Heavens sect is indeed powerful. Young Master Zhu Ming and the rest were shocked. The power of that slash seemed to be able to split open the heavens. Ha! Ignorant fools. Jiang Chun glanced at young Master Zhu Ming and the rest and shook his head. However, it made sense. If there was only a half-step God King in Nine Heavens sect, how could Jiu Qiansui be so arrogant? As a matter of fact, Jiang Chun should have guessed that the cultivation of the Nine Heavens sect's experts would surely surpass the half-divine king realm. They were all true divine kings. This person was most likely a god king who had survived from the previous era. His strength was unfathomable. How do we open this bronze door? At this moment, Jiu Qiansui and Jiu Tianzhong walked over and pulled Jiu Tianzhong back to their side. They stared at Jiang Chun unkindly. Cough, cough. Jiang Chun's face turned red. After all, it was embarrassing for a man to hide behind a girl. However, this was for his own life. The next step is simple. Gather the four elements of wind, rain, thunder, and fire and open the bronze door. Jiang Chun said softly, such a simple thing. I don't need to do it personally, right? You only need the power of the four elements? Jiu Tianzhong asked. There are some requirements in terms of cultivation. At the very least, it has to be an overgod, Jiang Chun said. As you know, it's only after becoming a titled deity that one can practice the forces of all elements. So, the Lord of God you're looking for must be a titled one. That's simple, Jiu Qiansui said softly. Jiang Chun couldn't help but be struck dumb. He was extremely shocked, for titled overgods with wind, rain, thunder, and fire. Nine Heavens sect had that. One must know that a titled chief god was no ordinary being. Only one out of hundreds and thousands of chief gods would appear. In today's world, most of the lords were ordinary lords. Before they became lords, they had never stepped into the realm of titled gods. Declare. At this moment, Jiu Tianzhong waved his hand and yelled out. As soon as he said that, 36 chief gods suddenly descended upon the area. As far as the eye could see, they were all titled chief gods. On top of that, they were all pinnacle level. What the hell? Is this the true strength of Nine Heavens sect? This is too terrifying. Everyone was visibly shaken. They had never imagined that the Nine Heaven sect would actually have 36 chief gods. Moreover, all of them were titled chief gods, and they were all peak-grade chief gods. If such a force were to appear, how many people in this world would be able to stop it? This is what the Nine Skies Imperial Court left in the outside world. Zhou Tian raised his brows and said, "Now you know how strong my Nine Skies Imperial Court is, right?" "So what? You've all sworn that you can't kill me," Jiangchen said mockingly. "Moreover, I'm the one who freed your people. I don't think the Nine Skies Imperial Court will repay kindness with enmity, right?" "You!" Zhou Tian stomped his feet in anger. He wanted nothing more than to crush Jiangchen. At this moment, Zhou Qiansui and Zhou Tianzhong stood in front of the 36 chief gods. After looking at them, they seemed to have an idea. Then, they looked at Jiangchen and asked, "How many do you need?" "Of course, the more the better," Jiangchen said. "The more powerful the four elements are, the faster the bronze door will open." "That's great. My people are finally going to appear." Zhou Tianzhong and Zhou Qiansui were very excited. Then, they picked out 18 chief gods with wind, rain, thunder, and fire titles. Then, under Jiang Chen's guidance, the 18 of them stood in 4 directions in front of the bronze door. Then, the power of the 4 elements exploded and hit the bronze door. Boom! Boom! Accompanied by a series of explosions, the power of the 4 elements danced in the air like rainbows. Ripples spread as if rainbows were emerging. At the same time, the rust on the bronze door was falling off, and the runes were disappearing. Half a day later, the bronze door finally opened a crack with a loud sound. "It's open." Zhou Tianzhong was very excited. He would be able to see his people soon. "What's that? Something strange." Suddenly, the expressions of the 18 titled sovereigns changed dramatically. That was because there was actually a huge suction force coming from inside the bronze door. Like a black hole, it firmly sucked the 18 chief gods in, and even the power in their bodies was being devoured. In just a few breaths' time, 3 chief gods died. Their essence, spirit, and cultivation were all devoured. "What's going on?" Jiangchen focused his eyes. Through the crack behind the bronze door, he seemed to see a pair of pitch-black eyes. The depths of the eyes seemed to be an abyss, and at the bottom of the abyss, there seemed to be a demon king sitting cross-legged. "It's normal. Don't make a sound." Zhou Qiansui and Zhou Tianzhong were very calm, as if they had expected this to happen. What exactly is sealed inside? Is it really your people?" Jiangchen was alarmed. He secretly thought that something big was going to happen this time. This was because wisps of aura that was neither demonic nor evil were emanating from the bronze door's crack. Jiangchen was very familiar with this aura. It was a murderous aura. One must know that there was still murderous aura in Jiangchen's body now. It was just temporarily sealed by the 3 wisps of chaotic aura and the ever-changing heavenly lamp. If this murderous aura were to erupt, Jiangchen would become a great murderous aura. Now, Jiangchen was certain that the unknown living being behind the bronze door was definitely a great murderous aura. As the foundation of the Nine Sky Court, you were born as members of the Nine Sky Court, and you will die as ghosts of the Nine Sky Court. Today, a member of my clan will be born. All of you, sacrifice yourselves. Zhou Tianzhong said softly, the excitement in his eyes growing. However, Jiangchen felt uneasy. He had a hunch that there was something wrong with what was sealed in the bronze door. "Oh my God! This is murderous aura." Young Master Zhu Ming trembled, his face pale. "Is this a great murderous aura?" "It's not just a great murderous aura. It's at least a half-step divine king." "Not enough." Suddenly, a low voice came from behind the bronze door. As the voice fell, the remaining dozen or so titled deities' faces changed drastically. They wanted to break free, but they did not want to sacrifice their lives. However, it was as if there was an endless black hole behind the bronze door, pulling them in. They could not break free at all. At the same time, their essence, chi, and divine power were being rapidly devoured. Chapter 883. In a short span of 30 breaths, The 18 chief gods were all devoured. They turned into a pile of dust, everything about them devoured cleanly. What's going on? Jiang Chun could no longer remain calm. He felt that the matter this time had definitely gotten out of hand. The patriarch has been sealed for too long and has lost too much of his essence. He needs to replenish it, Jiu Tianzhong explained. Don't worry. Since we've already sworn an oath, we won't harm you. At this point, Jiu Tianzhong's expression turned serious. He looked at the remaining 18 chief gods and said, "All of you, go and welcome the patriarch's return." As soon as the 18 titled lords heard this, their faces turned pale. Some even retreated, and a few even rose into the air and tore through the void, trying to escape. Although they were experts nurtured by the Nine Skies court, their lives were their own. It was not easy to cultivate to peak chief gods. How could they be willing to give up their lives so easily? From the moment you became a part of the Nine Skies court, you should have been aware, Jiu Tianzhong said coldly. However, he stood where he was and did not make a move. Boom! The next moment, a palm suddenly descended from the void, suppressing all 18 titled chief gods. Then, the palm swept across and through the 18 of them in front of the bronze door. It's that godly king who slashed just now. Jiang Qin was shocked. At the same time, he felt pity for these people. These 36 people were all chief gods, and all of them were peak chief gods. If these people were to emerge, they could even dominate half of the Nine Skies divine realm. But now, they had fallen just like that for a patriarch of the Nine Skies court. It was too pitiful, too cruel, but also very realistic. Speaking of which, the bronze door hasn't been completely opened yet. Jiang Qin mumbled. Without the 4 lord-level elements, the bronze door can't be opened. It can be opened. Jiu Tianzhong was very confident. As long as it opens a crack, it'll be fine. That's true, Jiang Chun said with a wry smile. The patriarch sealed inside the bronze door was definitely terrifyingly powerful. It was unimaginable. As long as he replenished his essence and recovered his strength to a certain level, he would be able to open the bronze door easily. Then at this moment it seemed that Jiang Chun had nothing to do with this place. Brat, although you have displeased us greatly, I must admit that you have contributed greatly to the return of our old ancestor, Jiu Tianzhong said. Eh? Jiang Chun chuckled. He felt helpless. If it weren't for the fact that their lives were in your hands, who would be willing to help you release this great fiend? Who knew if this great fiend would set off a storm of blood once it was born? Wang. After half an incense stick of time, the bronze door began to shake violently. A pair of withered yellow palms were inserted into the gap of the bronze door. Blue veins bulged on his palms like yellow dragons. With a sudden burst of strength, the bronze door was forcibly opened. Instantly, a monstrous murderous aura exploded, like a gust of gray wind howling. However, it only took an instant for this murderous aura to disappear. At the same time, 9,000 years old, and the other 2 kneeled before the bronze gate with a solemn expression. Welcome back, ancestor. How many years has it been? You're finally back. At this moment, an ancient voice rang out. Following that, a gray-haired old man in tattered clothes stepped out of the bronze door. The moment he stepped out of the bronze door, Jiang Chun was in a daze, feeling as if the world was shaking. Even his own Tao fluctuated slightly, as if it was about to be shattered by this gray-haired old man's aura. Terrifying to the extreme, above the godly king, Jiang Qin was shocked. Such a character was rare, even in ancient times, right? Could this gray-haired old man's cultivation really surpass the godly king? Then, what realm was above the godly king? Was it the godly emperor? The heavens can't destroy me. The array can't seal me. The glory of the 9 heavens will be reborn in my hands. After a few breaths, the gray-haired old man roared into the sky, as if he was venting, but also as if he was making an oath. However, at this moment, the gray-haired old man's aura calmed down, as if he was immortal. He walked in front of 9,000 years old, stretched out his withered hand, and helped 9,000 years old up. His eyes were filled with kindness as he sighed. My son, it's been hard on you. Father, 9,000 years old's eyes reddened. I've finally met you. Little Xia, you're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all. The gray-haired old man came in front of 9,000 years old again and patted 9,000 years old's head dotingly, saying, From now on, this world is ours. Father, 9,000 years old's eyes were filled with tears as he pounced on the gray-haired old man and said in a wrong tone, Father, I missed you. Father is back. This time, he won't leave again. The gray-haired old man said softly. Finally, the gray-haired old man looked at 9,000 years old and grinned. Which generation's leader are you? The 36th generation. 9,000 years old said respectfully. The 36th generation has no descendants. 9,000 years old welcomes the return of the ancestor. It's already the 36th generation? The gray-haired old man sighed and narrowed his eyes as if he was recalling the events before he was sealed. A few breaths later, he walked in front of 9,000 years old and said, It's been hard on you all these years. Not only did you have to take care of Tianzhong and Little Xia, you also had to think of a way to release me. For the Nine Heavens dynasty. 9,000 years old said seriously, but the excitement in his eyes couldn't be concealed. All because the ancestor of the Nine Heavens dynasty had come into being. He seemed to see the glory of the future. The scene of the Nine Heavens dynasty dominating the Nine Heavens divine world again. And he would be the leader of the Nine Heavens dynasty, the true ruler of the Nine Heavens dynasty. Today, in the name of 9,000 years old, I will bestow upon you the true leader of the dynasty. From now on, you will be below me and above all living beings. The gray-haired old man said seriously. In this way, 9,000 years old was the true leader of the Nine Heavens dynasty. Imperial Father, it's all thanks to this little brother this time. Zhou Tianzhong did not go back on his word either. Pointing at Jiang Chun, he said, If not for him, we probably also wouldn't be able to release you for the time being. Oh, is that so? 9,000 years old said softly. At such a young age, you already know how to resolve the four gods' heaven-extinguishing formation? Not bad. When he said this, 9,000 years old's gaze also landed on Jiang Chun. And at this moment, Jiang Chun was scared to death in his heart. All because with 9,000 years old strength, he could see through his foundation with one glance. Jiang Chun knew that his identity was going to be exposed today. However, what Jiang Chun did not expect was that when 9,000 years old saw him for the first time, a hint of panic and shock actually flashed across 9,000 years old's eyes. Chapter 884. 9 Deep, his strength unfathomable, and even entered fiendish state, a great fiend. This kind of living being's ability had long surpassed ordinary people's cognition and understanding. They could reach the heavens above and be thorough below, looking into the past, present, and future. Their means could be said to be extraordinary and unfathomable. And this kind of living being was undoubtedly the most powerful in this era. But the moment 9 Deep saw Jiang Chun, a hint of fear actually flashed across in his eyes. This made Jiang Chun somewhat puzzled, but he did not dare to ask too much either. After all, his strength was placed there. What did Jiang Chun dare to say? You came back? Right at this moment, 9 Deep arrived in front of Jiang Chun, his expression strange, the fear in his eyes disappearing. He stared at Jiang Chun tightly, complicated emotions flickering in the depths of his pupils. Me? Came back? Jiang Chun was also somewhat confused by the questions. But very soon, Jiang Chun reacted. He knew that this 9 Deep most likely knew his previous few lifetimes. Looks like he didn't come back. The moment 9 Deep heard Jiang Chun's words, he also came to a realization and said with a bitter smile, Makes sense too. How can he possibly come back? If he could come back, he would have long come back. How many eras has it been? The world is almost forgetting him. Talking up to here, 9 Deep's brows furrowed. Staring at Jiang Chun, he asked, You have seen 9 Abyss before? You have 9 abysses aura on you. The moment these words came out, Jiang Chun did not have much of a reaction, but 9 Heavens' heavy trio was visibly moved. In the Godless Continent's bloody path, I once encountered Senior 9 Abyss, Jiang Chun said truthfully. In front of 9 Deep, he had nothing to hide. Once he lied, it would definitely be seen through by the other party. Is he all right? 9 Deep asked. Still all right. It's just that his body seems to have some problem and has been recuperating inside the bloody path's forbidden land all along. Jiang Chun asked curiously, what's Senior's relationship with 9 Abyss? Abyss. 9 Deep said softly. I'm 9 Deep, he's 9 Abyss. He and I are the abyss in the eyes of the world. 9 Abyss is my father's blood brother. It's my royal uncle. Zhu Tianzhong said solemnly. How is royal uncle now? Did he ever mention us? Not a single word, Jiang Chun said. However, Senior 9 Abyss did give me some pointers and even taught me a Dao technique. He taught you a Dao skill? Jiu Shen frowned, as if he was surprised. Even Zhu Tianzhong and the rest were dumbfounded as they stared at Jiang Chun in a daze. This was especially true for Jiu Tian. She blinked her beautiful eyes as if she had discovered a new continent on Jiang Chun. He actually taught you Dao techniques? Does this mean he wants to be your master? After a few breaths of time, Jiu Shen smiled bitterly and said, he is really bold. If you really come back one day and know that he wants to teach you Dao skills and become your master, I'm afraid you. At this point, Jiu Shen waved his hand and said, let's not talk about the past. Although you haven't returned yet, and I'm not sure if you can return, at least we met. It's fate. With that, Jiu Shen's expression suddenly froze. He looked at Jiu Tianzhong and the rest and said seriously, from now on, he will be my Jiu Tian courts. As he spoke, Jiu Shen stopped. It was because he didn't know what to say. What is it? Jiang Chun asked curiously. I'm thinking about what official position I should give you. Jiu Shen was thinking very seriously. What? Father, are you sure you're not mistaken? Jiu Tian panicked. Although he had made a blood oath, Jiu Tian didn't want Jiang Chun to live a good life. And now, if Jiu Shen really gave Jiang Chun an official position, then Jiang Chun wasn't someone who could be bullied so easily. Yes, with your attainments, there is a position that suits you very well, Jiu Shen said softly, and his expression became serious again. In the name of the current emperor of Jiu Tian court, I confer you the title of Grand Tutor. At this moment, Jiu Tianzhong and the rest were stunned. Even Jiu Qiansui was in a mess. Grand Tutor? Grand Tutor? What's that? Jiang Chen asked. It means that you are now at the same level as Jiu Qiansui. Jiu Shen said, by the way, please teach my little Xia. Ah! Jiang Chun was stunned. Let him teach Jiu Tian? Are you sure? By the way, you can assist Tianzhong. Jiu Shen said, ah! At this moment, Jiang Chen's mind was full of question marks. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Jiang Chen wanted to ask, your cultivation is so high. Do you still need me to teach your children? Moreover, assist Tianzhong? What the hell was that? I think you can also see that I have entered the evil path. The things I learn are not suitable for them. Jiu Shen sighed. As for the 9 Heaven mysterious technique, it is passed to males and not females. Therefore, little Xia's cultivation has always been a problem. Wait, Jiang Chun hurriedly said. Senior, you still don't know my relationship with Jiu Tian, right? Look at her eyes. It's like she wants to swallow me alive. I still dare to teach her? If I say it's okay, then it's okay, Jiu Shen said softly. He glanced at Jiu Tian and said, I don't care what conflicts and grudges you have in the past. From today onwards, Tiansong will be your master in cultivation. Yes, Jiu Tian's face was full of grievances, but she did not dare to go against Jiu Shen's wishes. She was crying in her heart, secretly thinking that her life was really gloomy and bleak. First, she was beaten up by Jiang Chun. Then, she was spanked by Jiang Chun. Now, she had not even taken revenge for the previous few times and had become Jiang Chen's disciple. This was grievance. Tiansong? At this moment, Only Jiao Tianzhong realized how Jiao Shun addressed Jiang Chun. Tian-song, looks like you all don't know his identity, right? Jiao Shun smiled and said, he is Tian-song, a character from an era before me. Speaking of which, the establishment of Jiao Tian dynasty is all thanks to him. Jiao Shun sighed. It's just that he seems to have forgotten the past. What? Silly boy is Tian-song? Impossible? Tian-song? The one who is known as the strongest god emperor in the history of Jiao Tian divine realm? At this moment, young Master Zhu Ming and the others also exclaimed. They did not know Tian-song. The era was different, but they had heard of Tian-song's name. Even in the ancient books today, there were records of Tian-song. That was a god emperor of a generation. It was said that when he was alive, he truly suppressed the world. But, for some reason, Tian-song disappeared. It was said that his lifespan was exhausted, and he found a place to bury himself. Of course, these were not matters. What was most memorable was Tian-song's strength. He was known as the strongest god emperor in the history of Jiao Tian divine realm. As for his other identities, Jiao Shun said softly. Looking at Jiang Chun, he said, do you want to tell them this? As long as you're happy. Jiang Chun said with a bitter smile, cursing endlessly in his heart. An old monster with your cultivation. If you want to say it, then say it. Do I still dare to stop you? Chapter 885. Before Jiao Shun was born, Jiang Chun felt that things were going to get out of hand. But now, it seemed that Jiao Shun was still clear-headed and very rational. Jiang Chun was secretly glad that Jiao Shun didn't cause any big commotion. Otherwise, he would be a sinner. At this moment, Jiao Shun didn't say anything else. He let Jiao Qiansui take care of the remaining matters and then disappeared. As for Jiang Chun's other identities, Jiao Shun didn't say it out loud. Perhaps he had already seen through Jiang Chun's difficulties, so he kept some secrets for Jiang Chun. These people, kill them. It's useless. Jiao Qiansui looked at young Master Zhu Ming and the others. He raised his palm and was about to kill them. Wait, let them go. Jiang Chun hurriedly said, seeing that I released your ancestor, can you let them go? When Jiang Chun said this, Jiao Qiansui and the others were a little confused, especially Jiao Tianzhong. After being stunned for a moment, he asked, don't you know what a grand tutor means? I don't. Jiang Chun shook his head. A grand tutor is the same level as a ruler. Jiao Tianzhong said, if you want to let them go, other than father, no one can stop you. Oh, my status is so high now? Jiang Chun was surprised. It was just a grand tutor position. Was it so awesome? However, Jiang Chun's cultivation was too low. He was a little worried that with a high status, he could convince the people of the Jiao court. From now on, we'll work together. Everything can be discussed. Jiao Qiansui cupped his hands at Jiang Chun. His attitude was completely different from before. Previously, in Jiao Qiansui's eyes, Jiang Chun was just an ant. In order to release Jiao Shun, they made a blood oath not to make things difficult for Jiang Chun. But in their hearts, Jiang Chun's nature hadn't changed. He was still a weakling, but now it was different. Jiao Shun personally appointed him as an official. Jiang Chun was now the Grand Tutor of the Nine Skies Imperial Court. How noble was his status? No matter how low Jiang Chun's cultivation was, as long as he was the Grand Tutor, it was enough. You guys can leave first. Don't forget what you promised me, Jiang Chun said to young Master Zhu Ming and the others. Don't tell anyone about what you saw today. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. Yes, yes, yes. We didn't see or hear anything. Young Master Zhu Ming and the rest understood the situation and left hurriedly. Can I go back now? Jiang Chun asked. You're joking, Grand Tutor. You can go wherever you want. Nobody in this world can stop you. Jiao Qiansui smiled and said, if you need any help, don't hesitate to ask. Help? Jiang Chun murmured. He wondered if he could borrow the Nine Heavens Imperial Court's help to eliminate the 36 overgods who had tried to kill him. However, Jiang Chun quickly rejected his idea. That was his own revenge. He had to take it himself. Killing his enemies with his own hands was the true revenge. Disciple, follow me from now on. I will teach you well. Jiangchen stood up. When he passed by Zhuge Yansui, he had a mocking look on his face. Zhuge Yansui was furious and felt wronged. She glared at Jiangchen angrily and ground her teeth. Her 2 canine teeth were about to be ground to pieces. That's all for now. I'll go back to the neighboring academy, Jiangchen said. In the end, Jiangchen found Baiming Shui. The two of them did not speak as they returned to the neighboring academy. After returning to the cave, Baiming Shui did not leave. Instead, she stood in front of Jiangchen and asked, "Did anything happen?" "No." Jiangchen shook his head and said, "If something had happened, would we have been able to return? They didn't make things difficult for you? If they made things difficult for you, I'll just return to the Baiming family and seek justice for you," Baiming Shui said seriously. When Jiangchen heard that, he smiled. He naturally understood Baiming Shui's good intentions. However, Jiangchen was now even clearer about the foundation of the Zhuge Yansui court. Although the Baiming family was powerful and had a deep foundation compared to the Zhuge Yansui court, it was indeed a little lacking. Furthermore, Jiangchen had a feeling that there was still a living being behind the bronze door that had not come out. That living being might be in a deep sleep or might have encountered some accident, but it was definitely not dead. In fact, Jiangchen had a feeling that that living being might be even stronger than Zhuge Yansui. The enmity between Zhuge Yansui and I has already ended. Zhuge Yansui's sect won't make things difficult for me either, Jiangchen said with a smile. "It's fine, don't worry." "Really?" Baiming Shui had a suspicious look. She kept feeling that Jiangchen was hiding something from her. However, since Jiangchen didn't want to tell her, she didn't pursue the matter. "That's right. When will I be able to comprehend and cultivate at the World's Edge Adjacent Academy?" Jiangchen suddenly remembered. Entering the adjacent academy was not only for protection, but also to cultivate at the World's Edge Adjacent Academy. "I can't make the decision. You'll have to ask the other elders," Baiming Shui said. "Of course, if the other 8 elders agree, then there's no need to ask the dean." "The other 8 elders all agree?" Jiangchen rolled his eyes and said, "That's too troublesome. I'll go directly to the dean." After saying that, Jiangchen got up and planned to go directly to the dean. However, just as he walked out of the cave residence, Chi-Tung came again. This time, he brought some dragon transformation fruits and bloodline fruits to Jiangchen with a smile and said, "Junior brother, I heard that you need these things, so I especially want to get some for you." "Heh, thank you," Jiangchen said softly, but he still did not accept it. To be honest, Jiangchen had always been wary of this Chi-Tung. "Junior brother, you don't have to be so polite. You and I are from the same sect," Chi-Tung said. "As I said before, we have to take care of each other in the future. I will take care of myself," Jiangchen said calmly and slowly walked past Chi-Tung. Chi-Tung smiled awkwardly and said, then, "Junior brother, if you need anything, just tell me. If I can help you, I will definitely help you." "Oh," Jiangchen heard, stopped and said, "I want to cultivate at the World's Edge Adjacent Academy. Can you help me?" This, Chi-Tung was embarrassed. Although he was the highest level saint in the adjacent academy, he did not cultivate at the World's Edge Adjacent Academy. "You see, you can't help?" Jiangchen said softly. "I'll go to the dean myself." "The dean will not agree," Chi-Tung said. "You are not qualified to cultivate at the World's Edge Adjacent Academy." "How do you know if you don't try?" Jiangchen said. Then, Jiangchen ignored Chi-Tung and walked towards the dean's cave residence. Chi-Tung did not know what he was thinking, but he actually followed him all the way. Not long after, when Jiangchen arrived in front of the dean's cave residence, before he could say anything, a jade slip flew out of the cave residence and fell in front of Jiangchen. "This is what you want." The dean's voice came from inside the cave residence. "Don't spread it outside. This is the World's Edge Adjacent Cultivation Method?" Jiangchen was stunned. How did he get the World's Edge Adjacent Academy so easily? Chapter 886. Jiangchen had never seen the dean of the neighboring academy, so he was very puzzled. He had just arrived in front of the cave and hadn't even explained his purpose for coming. So why did he give him the cultivation method of the horizon's edge? You are qualified to cultivate the horizon's edge. The dean's voice came from inside the cave. There was no emotional fluctuation, and he only warned Jiang Chun that the horizon's edge could not be spread out. The horizon's edge was the highest skill of the neighboring academy. It was said that it contained the power of time and space. Naturally, such a thing could not be spread out. Chi Tung, who was standing to the side, remained silent. His expression was natural, but his heart was filled with anger. As the holy son of the neighboring academy, he was not qualified to cultivate the horizon's edge until now, and Jiang Chun, who had only been in the neighboring academy for a few days, was qualified? Could it be? Is it just because he has the supreme Tao fruit? The anger in Chi Tung's heart was too strong. He was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and turn around to leave. Jiang Chun did not pay attention to Chi Tung. Instead, he looked at the door of the cave and asked, "Why are you giving me the horizon's edge?" "Because you want it." The dean said, "I want it, so you'll give it to me?" Jiang Chun was stunned. Wasn't this reason too far-fetched? "Because you are qualified." The dean said, "Go back and cultivate." Jiang Chun was confused, but he did not continue to ask. He turned around and left. At this moment, inside the cave, the dean's eyes flickered as he watched Jiang Chun's departing figure. The corner of his mouth carried a trace of a smile. His withered fingers stroked his beard and sighed. He's finally back. If Jiang Chun heard these words, he would definitely be surprised or even shocked. It was because the dean of the neighboring academy actually knew his identity. But thinking about it carefully, it was normal. How could someone who could be the dean of the neighboring academy be ordinary? Moreover, if Jiang Chun only had the supreme Tao fruit, he would not have taught the horizon's edge to Jiang Chun so easily. In the end, it was because he knew Jiang Chun's identity. Silly. Who the hell are you? At this moment, Chi Tung had returned to his cave abode. His eyes were filled with arrogance. His heart was filled with killing intent and jealousy. I've been in the neighboring academy for several years, and I've gone through several hardships to reach where I am today. I've even stepped into the realm of titled deity. As for you, you are nothing more than a lower true divinity. You've only been in the academy for a few days, so what does it matter if you have the supreme Tao fruit? What right do you have to be able to cultivate the horizon adjacent to Earth? Roars of anger and doubts exploded in Saito's heart. He knew what it meant for the dean to give Jiang Chun the horizon adjacency. Jiang Chun would inherit the position of dean in the future. If you don't come to the neighboring academy, everything will be mine. You are the one who took everything from me. Sato's heart was getting more and more agitated. Jealousy and unwillingness almost made him lose his mind. However, after a few breaths, Chi Tung calmed down. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a cold light that was like a dagger that had been corroded by darkness, causing people to panic. If you lose the supreme Tao fruit, you'll lose everything. The horizon adjacent to Earth is mine, and the position of dean is still mine. Chi Tung thought to himself. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a gloomy smile. Jiang Chun had no idea what Chi Tung was thinking. He would never have thought that there would be a great disaster waiting for him. This is one of the best movement techniques, the horizon adjacent to Earth. At this moment, Jiang Chun opened the jade slip, and the cultivation technique of the horizon adjacent to Earth was imprinted in his mind. After carefully comprehending it, Jiang Chun understood that he was in a boundless starry sky. The starry sky formed a river, and time seemed to float around him. In front of him, there was a white light that seemed to symbolize the future. Behind him, endless darkness seemed to be the past. The horizon adjacent to Earth really contains the laws of time and space. Jiang Chun was shocked. He could clearly feel that this starry river was like the long river of time. Standing on it, he could feel the passage of time. He tried to take a step forward, wanting to cross the long river of time and even surpass the limit of time. However, it was a pity that he failed. After taking a step forward, Jiang Chun was still standing in the same place. Everything around him seemed to remain unchanged for eternity. Looking back, the endless darkness was like an abyss. If you don't move forward, you will be swallowed by the past, Jiang Qin whispered, and there was a trace of understanding in his heart. However, for the power of the laws of time and space, Jiang Qin still found it difficult to understand and comprehend. Of course, this did not mean that Jiang Qin's talent was not good, but the power of time and space were the most difficult to cultivate in the world. Anything related to time and space, which one of them was ordinary? It was destined to be extraordinary and mysterious. With space as the door, time as the road, divine thoughts like the starry sky. With a thought, the sun and moon reverse. With a thought, flowers bloom and become a Buddha. In the next few days, Jiang Qin had been comprehending the horizon adjacent to Earth, and he had comprehended many things. During this process, he did not forget to cultivate the soul ascension demonic technique. Time passed slowly until one day, Jiang Qin's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he found himself sitting cross-legged on the square adjacent to the college. Where the heart leads is where the goal is, Jiang Qin whispered. The horizon adjacent to Earth was already a minor achievement. Next, Jiang Qin's mind spun like the stars in the sky, and ripples spread around him as if time and space were colliding and blending. The next moment, his figure flashed and returned to his cave residence. Hiss! Jiang Qin inhaled a breath of cold air. He had only used the horizon adjacent to Earth twice, and half of the divine power in his body had been consumed. What's the use of this thing? Jiang Qin cursed in his heart. If he were to fight with someone, he would not even need to make a move after using it 3 to 5 times. His divine power would be exhausted, and he would be defeated directly. This was not practical. Speaking of which, it's quite good to use it for running, Jiang Qin muttered. However, Jiang Qin also realized that it was not that the horizon adjacent to Earth was not practical, but that his cultivation level was too low. The lower the cultivation level, the less divine power stored in the body. If Jiang Qin was in the God realm now, he could use the horizon adjacent to Earth at least a dozen times, or even more. Moreover, Jiang Qin also understood that the horizon adjacent to Earth was too profound, and it was related to the laws of time and space. Now, he had only made some progress and had not grasped the true meaning of the horizon adjacent to Earth. Therefore, there would be some impact when he used it. Don't rush. Take it slowly. The laws of time and space are not so easy to understand thoroughly, Jiang Qin whispered. Bang! All of a sudden, the door of Jiang Qin's abode was kicked open, and a young girl walked in with a gloomy look. Jiang Qin blinked and was deeply surprised. He asked subconsciously, "Why are you here?" Chapter 887. It was none other than Under the 9 Heavens. Jiang Qin was very surprised. Why would the princess of the 9 Heavens court come to the neighboring academy? Also, if you want to come, then come. What's the meaning of breaking my cave's door? Do you think I wanted to come? My father ordered me to cultivate with you. Under the 9 Heavens said angrily, I really don't know what my father is thinking, to actually let you be my master. I also don't know what your father is thinking, to actually let you be my disciple. Jiang Qin pursed his lips. He did not want to accept this disciple from the bottom of his heart. Under the 9 Heavens was naughty and had a strong, murderous nature. She was also arrogant and had the temper of a misty. Jiang Qin really did not want to interact with 9 Heavens. He felt that it was troublesome. However, her father was Jiao Shun, the emperor of the 9 Heavens court. What else could Jiang Qin say? He did not dare to resist and could only silently accept it. To be honest, I don't have anything to teach you, Jiang Qin said. The 9 Heavens court does not lack cultivation techniques, divine skills, or even Dao skills. You really don't have anything to teach me. 9 Heavens frowned. It was because of this that she was very confused. Even if she could not cultivate the 9 Heavens mysterious technique, there were many top cultivation techniques in the 9 Heavens court. There were also many divine skills and Dao skills. She did not have to worry about cultivation at all. Then, what did Jiao mean by letting her be Jiang Qin's disciple? Forget it. Maybe it's just father's whim. I'll stay here for a few days and wait for Father to think it through before I go back. Nine Heavens mumbled. Then Nine Heavens walked into the cave abode and sat on the only soft couch in the cave abode. Take care of your own cultivation. I'm tired and need to rest, Nine Heavens said. Then she closed her eyes and really went to sleep. Jiangchen saw this and was rather speechless. Nine Heavens' talent was extremely high. It was not an exaggeration to call her a monster. However, when it came to cultivation, she really didn't care about it at all. Otherwise, with her talent, she would have entered the supreme God realm by now. It's obvious that he's been spoiled, Jiang Chun thought to himself. Following that, Jiang Chun continued to cultivate, too lazy to bother with Nine Heavens. This continued until 3 days later. On this day, Saito came again. This time, Saito didn't bring anything. Instead, he told Jiang Chun that the Yin-Yang twin spring adjacent to the academy had opened. The Yin-Yang dual chi spring was a sacred spring adjacent to the academy. It contained the power of Yin and Yang, and could harmonize the power in a cultivator's body to achieve a certain balance. It could also boost one's cultivation and even improve one's physique. As for the Yin-Yang twin springs, only people at the level of a saint could enter. However, Jiangchen wasn't interested in the Yin-Yang twin springs, so he just casually responded. Saito didn't say anything more, turned around, and walked away. If you don't want to go to the Yin-Yang twin chi spring, let me go. Under the ninth heaven jumped up from the soft couch and stretched his arms and legs. It's too boring to stay in this cave all day. All right, you can go in my place, Jiang Chun said softly. To Jiang Chun, his foundation was very solid, and the power in his body was very pure. He didn't need to use the yin-yang twin chi to harmonize. On the other hand, under the ninth heaven, this little girl's temper was very bad. It would be good to go to the yin-yang twin springs to harmonize. Half a day later, in the depths of the mountains adjacent to the academy, on a short mountain, there was nothing special about the short mountain, but at the top of the short mountain, there was a spring that spewed out black and white spring water. The spring water flowed down from the short mountain and gathered 100 meters away from the short mountain. The place where the spring water gathered was the so-called yin-yang twin springs. This short mountain was the spring of the yin-yang twin springs. At this moment, Saito was hiding on the short mountain with a cold smile on his face. There was a wisp of black mist in his hand. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. Supreme Tao Fruit? Saint? After today, you are nothing, Saito said coldly. The black mist in his hand turned into drops of black liquid and dripped onto the spring. The black liquid was like a poisonous snake that flowed along the spring water and finally entered the yin-yang twin springs. Saito was very excited, but his expression was very fierce. This black liquid was the Tao-melting liquid that he had paid a great price to obtain. A single drop could cause a living being's cultivation to completely dissipate, turning them into a cripple. And those few drops of Tao-melting liquid just now were enough to turn a supreme, God-level powerhouse into nothingness. However, he didn't know that the one inside the yin-yang twin springs wasn't Jiangchen, but Jiu Tian. After a dozen breaths of time, Jiu Tian, who was soaking in the hot spring, suddenly turned pale. Her cultivation was rapidly dissipating. Even her body and soul were showing signs of decay. At this moment, Jiu Tian panicked. She hurriedly got up, put on her clothes, and staggered out of the yin-yang twin springs. What? Saito's eyes widened. He was very surprised to see Jiu Tian. In his plan, it should have been Jiang Chun who had dashed out of the yin-yang two chi spring instead of a woman. And as far as he knew, there were no women among the holy sons of the neighboring academies. Who is she? Saito frowned, a cold light flashing in his eyes. He knew that since he had failed this time, there wouldn't be a second time. Jiang Chun would definitely notice, and at this time, he couldn't hide it. Then, since that was the case, he could only fight. You force me? I just want to take back everything that belongs to me, Saito said coldly, then disappeared on the spot. At the same time, Jiang Chun, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. This was because he sensed a terrifying rotten aura approaching him at a rapid speed. Save me! After a few breaths of time, when Jiao Tian's skin and flesh split open and her soul rushed into the cave, Jiang Chen's entire body exploded. What's going on? Jiang Chen was shocked. This was the Jiao Tian Imperial Court's Jiao Tian. How many people in this world dared to attack her? Did they want to die? The hot spring is poisonous. Jiao Tian was very weak, and tears of blood flowed from her eyes. Her physical body was collapsing and rotting, and her cultivation level had dropped by a lot. Her soul and divine soul were surrounded by a decaying force, and were about to be annihilated. Dao melting elixir? Jiang Chen checked Jiao Tian's condition, and his expression changed drastically. Don't talk about it. Then, Jiang Chen formed a seal with both hands and stabilized Jiao Tian's physical body with the inextinguishable fire. Then, the ever-changing heavenly lamp appeared, and the light burned, enveloping Jiao Tian's divine soul and soul. This way, Jiao Tian's injuries were stabilized. However, this was only temporary. Dao melting elixir was known as the most vicious poison, and also the most incurable poison. Anyone who was contaminated by it couldn't escape the fate of Dao melting elixir. However, what Jiang Chen didn't expect was that the Dao melting elixir would appear on Jiao Tian's body. It's him! Suddenly, Jiang Chen came to a realization, and a name flashed in his mind, Saito. Chapter 888. Jiang Chen had always been on guard against Shiteng. This person had repeatedly tried to curry favor with him. There was definitely something fishy going on. However, Jiang Chen had never thought that Shiteng would be so bold as to use the yin-yang dual qi spring to get rid of him. One had to know that Jiang Chen was now the holy son of 3 realms adjacent to the academy. He was also Bai Ming Xue's direct disciple on the surface. The most important thing was that Jiang Chen had now obtained the Tinya adjacent academy. This meant that Jiang Chen had hopes of becoming the dean of the adjacent academy in the future and was one of the candidates for the dean position. With these identities, Shiteng dared to make a move so brazenly. His courage was not small. However, perhaps even Shiteng himself did not expect that the one who went to the yin-yang dual qi spring this time was not Jiang Chen, but Jiao Tian. I'll make the decision for you. Jiang Chen's face was cold as a trace of guilt flashed in his eyes. After all, Jiao Tian was completely implicated this time and had nothing to do with her. And now, Jiao Tian was seriously injured and her life was in danger. I want to go home. Jiao Tian's voice was very weak. Although her injuries had temporarily stabilized, the Dao melting liquid in her body was still there. It was too difficult to completely eradicate this kind of poison. If it could not be eradicated, Jiao Tian's cultivation could forget about improving in this lifetime. Even her life could disappear at any time. Okay, let's go home, Jiang Chen said softly. He carried Jiao Tian and walked toward the teleportation array adjacent to the academy. Along the way, there was no obstruction. Shiteng did not appear, which made Jiang Chen feel relieved. After all, Shiteng was indeed too strong for the current Jiang Chen. He was already a title god. No matter how strong Jiang Chen was, he was not Shiteng's opponent. Now, as long as he returned to Jiao Tian's sect, everything would be easy. Take a nap. When you wake up, everything will be fine, Jiang Chen said softly. He carried Jiao Tian and stepped into the teleportation array. As the light danced, the two of them stepped into the space tunnel. However, after a dozen breaths, the space tunnel actually collapsed. Jiang Chen staggered and fell from the void. A terrifying void storm was like a sharp blade. Pooh! With a series of muffled sounds, Jiang Chen's body was cut open, and even cracks appeared between his eyebrows. His divine soul was on the verge of exploding. Fortunately, Jiang Chen's corporeal body was strong enough, and he immediately used the myriad transformation, heavenly lamp, and 3 strands of chaos chi to protect him and Jiao Tian Xia, saving their lives. What extravagance! It can even sever a spatial tunnel. Jiang Chen was shocked. Looking around, He had no idea where he was. At the same time, Jiang Chun felt a chill in his heart. Because even a half-step divine king couldn't sever the void passage. What kind of expert was able to do it this time? Or could it be that the collapse of the space channel was just an accident? It can't be an accident. How could there be such a coincidence? Jiang Chun thought to himself as he quickly concealed his aura. At the same time, he cleaned up the traces and bloodstains around him. Then, he carried Zhou Tianxia and planned to find a place to ask for directions. Then, he would use the teleportation formation to send Zhou Tianxia back. However, before he could walk far, a terrifying aura suddenly covered a radius of 1,000 miles. Then, a terrifying divine sense exploded like a gust of wind, sweeping through every inch of the 1,000 miles. It's really not a coincidence. Jiang Chun laughed bitterly. From the strength of the divine sense, Jiang Chun knew that this person's cultivation had reached the divine king realm. Did cheating invite you? I'm right here, and there's no one around. You can appear now. Jiang Chun put Zhou Tianxia down to the side, straightened his back, and stood still. After a few breaths, Qi Tung and an old man stepped out from the other side of the void. You're really lucky. Qi Tung looked at Jiang Chun and said coldly, the yin-yang dual qi spring didn't kill you, and the void storm didn't tear you apart. Why? Do you want to kill me so badly? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and said, why? Because you took away what originally belonged to me. Qi Tung's face turned ferocious. The Horizon adjacent school was originally mine. The position of the dean should have been mine. And you've only been in the adjacent school for a few days, and that old fart passed the Horizon adjacent school to you just because you have the supreme Dao fruit. Damn old fart. Jiang Chun looked at Qi Tung and said slowly, I never planned to inherit the position of the dean of the adjacent school. But they all made the decision. Otherwise, why would they pass the Horizon adjacent school to you? Qi Tung roared, a bunch of old farts, they all deserve to die. Yes, even if there's only one person today, I won't be able to escape death. Jiang Chun spoke softly, before his gaze fell upon the old man. He furrowed his brows and said, a divine king? I was entrusted by someone, little brother, I'm sorry. The old man said without any emotion, as if he was a walking corpse. You are a divine king, yet your blood energy is dried up. How many eras have you lived? Jiang Chun asked curiously. One must know that in this era, there was no divine king born yet. The divine kings that appeared now were all from a few eras ago. I forgot, it's too long ago. The old man shook his head and suddenly, a smile appeared on his face. Tian Chun, I've heard a lot about you, but unfortunately, you're no longer at the peak. When these words came out, Jiang Chun was very calm. After all, he already knew that in front of a divine king, all secrets would be seen through. However, Qi Tung's eyes widened. His face was full of disbelief. He's Tianchen? Qi Tung whispered. Yes, 3,000 years ago, he fell. But not long ago, the entire ninth heaven divine world knew that he didn't die, but was reincarnated to the godless continent. The old man laughed. Then the old man's eyes flashed and he sighed. If we were both at the peak, I really want to fight with you. Yes, I've never seen a battle between divine kings in my life. Jiang Chun sighed. What divine king? Today you're going to die. Qi Tung said coldly. At this point, he didn't care about Jiang Chun's identity. Since he had already made his move, it was like an arrow leaving the bow. There was no turning back. Moreover, Qi Tung's identity was not ordinary. Since he could invite an ancient divine king, he didn't need to fear the upper echelons of the neighboring colleges. You can kill me, but can you let her go? This matter has nothing to do with her. Jiang Chun pointed to the ninth heaven and sighed. Do you think that today one of you will be able to leave alive? Qi Tung sneered. Cut the grass and pull out the roots. You can't leave behind any future troubles. It's okay if you kill me. But if you really kill him, I don't care how strong the forces behind you are, they will definitely be destroyed. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. However, just as his voice fell, a very domineering, but gentle voice sounded in the void. Is it really okay to kill you? Did you ask for my opinion? Chapter 889. This matter was caused by Jiangchen. Below nine heavens was merely implicated. It had nothing to do with her. Hence today, if Jiangchen died, then he died. But he did not wish to let below nine heavens die. Although this little lass was normally a little demoness, and her murderous nature was also extremely heavy, in the end, this matter indeed had nothing to do with her. But at this moment, when this voice sounded out, it involuntarily made everyone stunned. Jiang Chun was very surprised too. At this kind of time, who still had time to help him? In this nine heavens divine world, there were many people who could help Jiang Chun. But the people who could help in time, in Jiang Chun's impression, there was not a single one. Blood energy dried up to such an extent. Half a foot already stepped into the coffin. How can he still have the face to come out and mingle? Really take himself to be a peak divine king? Right at this moment, a void split open. A woman wearing a purple gold long robe appeared. Not only was there divine light flickering on her body, there was even a divine ring behind her that was bobbing up and down like a brilliant sun. Under her feet, one golden lotus after another bloomed. Above her head, there was even a divine deity manifesting like a bright moon. Looks could be rated as peerless. Figure was even more graceful. But between her brows, it revealed a domineering aura. But when this woman looked at Jiang Chun, her eyes involuntarily flashed with a trace of tenderness and even some complicated emotions. The moment Jiang Chun saw this woman, his eyes involuntarily widened as he cried out in surprise, "Empress!" "Empress?" This woman said softly, following which she sighed and said, "Looks like you haven't returned yet." Finished talking, the Empress no longer paid attention to Jiang Chun. Her gaze looked at Qi Teng and that old man coldly, and she said, "You guys, who wants to kill him?" The moment these words came out, a cold light flashed in Qi Teng's eyes. Seemingly relying on the fact that he had a divine king backing him, he was arrogant and fearless as he said, "It's me. How is it?" "Oh, you?" The Empress raised her brows and said contemptuously, "In this world, can any Tom, Dick, and Harry really go against the weak? Young master, this person is not easy to deal with." That old man's expression was incomparably ugly. Others could not see through the Empress's present strength. But how could he not see through it? He knew very well that the woman before him was only a hair's breadth away from becoming a god king. She could even be called a deity king now. The old man really wanted to ask Qi Teng if he was blind. Didn't he see the god king's godhead behind that woman? "Kill them all," Saitu said coldly. However, after saying this, Saitu realized that the old man beside him didn't make a move. In fact, the old man even cupped his hands and bowed to the Empress, saying, "This junior is ignorant. Please don't take offense, fellow Taoist." "Oh, he can kill people just because he doesn't know any better?" The Empress raised her eyebrows and said, "Do you know who he wants to kill?" "Bitch, what does our actions have to do with you? Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll kill you too." Saitu shouted angrily. Hiss, after hearing this, the old man's face turned pale and he sucked in a breath of cold air. He was really speechless. Was Saitu a moron? Or was he really blind? Did he really think that with him, the divine king, around, he could do whatever he wanted? This child was still too young. The waters of the ninth heaven divine realm were very deep. Otherwise, why didn't the divine kings who had survived from the ancient times walk around the world? There must be a reason behind this. "Kill me?" The Empress blinked her eyes. She was also very surprised. However, she didn't care about this. She just looked at Jiang Chun and said, "What do you think we should do?" "I don't want to see them." Jiang Chun said in a low voice, "Live in this world, then kill them." The Empress was very decisive. As soon as she finished speaking, she struck out with her palm. It was like a ray of divine light falling down, directly turning Saitu into dust. She didn't say anything superfluous. She was very direct. After seeing this, the old man didn't make a move. He just explained, I was asked to do this by someone. This matter has nothing to do with me. He said that he doesn't want to see you living in this world. The Empress said. Suddenly, the holy light on her body surged. Then, she struck out with her palm. In her delicate palm, there seemed to be boundless Tao and heaven and earth. With one strike, the old man was sent into a crack in the void. The next moment, the Empress's figure disappeared on the spot. She escaped into the void. After a few breaths in the void, there was a series of explosions. As expected of the Empress, Jiangchen whispered. He and the Empress had only met a few times. They didn't even have much of a relationship. At least, that was what Jiangchen thought. However, every time the Empress appeared, she would make Jiangchen gasp in amazement. Because this woman was really too fierce. The Empress, I heard that some time ago, you escaped into the forbidden area of East Sea. Why did you come out? Jiangchen muttered. A rotten divine king dares to come out in this era. After half an incense stick's time, the Empress returned. She looked calm, and her aura was very stable. However, there was a trace of blood on her palm. Are you hurt? Jiangchen asked. Hurt? The Empress was stunned for a moment. In your eyes, am I that weak? With that, the Empress swung her hand to get rid of the blood on her palm. It's that old divine king's. I couldn't kill him and let him escape. Yes. You really want to kill him? Jiangchen was shocked. Although that godly king was already decaying, his blood and chi dried up, and he was no longer in his peak condition, he was still a godly king. You want to kill a divine king so easily? Isn't that too fierce? How did you know I was here? Jiangchen asked. Also, I heard that you entered the forbidden area of East Sea not long ago. From the moment you entered the divine world of the ninth heaven, I knew. The Empress said. Then, her eyes flashed coldly. As for entering the forbidden area of East Sea, I was forced. A bunch of trash. Wait until I recover to my peak. I will overturn their orthodoxies sooner or later. At this point, the Empress's expression became serious again. She stared at Jiangchen and said, The great era is about to change. Changed? What kind of change? Jiangchen asked. It was rare to see the Empress so serious. Something big must have happened. The age of chaos is over. The nine heavens will also usher in a prosperous and glorious era. A prosperous era. The Empress said, At that time, those divine kings who have been dormant for many eras will appear, and everyone will have the chance to become a divine king. The limit of divine kings will no longer exist. With the beginning of the great era, there will be people who will break through the shackles and surpass the divine king. What? Jiangchen exclaimed. This was a big deal. One must know that in every era, only one person could become a divine king. This rule had been passed down for many eras. Now this rule was going to be broken. At that time, as long as one's talent was enough, anyone would have the chance to become a divine king. Divine kings are going to be everywhere? Jiangchen muttered. Chapter 890. Once upon a time, every cultivator's dream was to become a divine king. So many people had gone through countless tribulations and stepped on the edge of life and death just to become a divine king. But now, the environment was about to change. The golden age was coming, and the age of chaos was about to end. At that time, cultivation would no longer be difficult. As long as one had enough talent, they would have a chance to become a divine king. Jiangchen sighed. Perhaps this was the difference in times. The strong cultivators would also change greatly. Back then, Jiangchen had gone through many hardships to stand out among countless cultivators. He had fought and advanced, and only then did he become a divine king. And before long, all these rules would change. Becoming a divine king won't be common, the Empress explained. The Empress explained, the divine king is a threshold. Even in the golden age, not many people can ascend to the position of the divine king. However, there is one kind of person who can definitely become a divine king, the Empress said. What kind of recognition? Jiangchen asked hurriedly. As long as a cultivator who becomes a titled god doesn't die, he can definitely become a divine king. The Empress explained, a long time ago, becoming a titled god was a key to becoming a divine king. Only by becoming a titled god can one become a divine king. It's just that people in later generations have forgotten about this. The Empress sighed. The Empress had been around for a long time. She knew a lot of things, and she also knew the origin of some special realms. Just like this titled deity, in her era, almost every cultivator would do their best to try and become a deity. This was because only by becoming a titled god could one be qualified to become a divine king. And because the later generations had entered the age of chaos, it became more and more difficult to enter the titled god realm. Only one divine king could be born in each era. As time passed, not many people cared about the significance of becoming a titled god. This was because most people had already given up on becoming a divine king. Will a titled god definitely be able to become a divine king? Jiangchen was shocked. This was because all of his enemies were titled sovereigns. If the Golden Age really came, Jiangchen would not be facing a group of titled gods, but a group of divine kings. Jiangchen was worried. If that was really the case, then his future path would be even more difficult. Therefore, you don't have much time left, the Empress said in a low voice. Under the Golden Age, hundreds of flowers will bloom, and the road to Southwall will open. When the time comes, you may have to face more enemies, even enemies from the great thousand world outside the southern wall, the Empress said. At this point, the Empress's expression suddenly changed, and she said, "I'm leaving." After saying that, the Empress didn't even have time to say goodbye. Her figure immediately disappeared into the void. Jiangchen was stunned. The Empress could even suppress the ancient king of gods, yet she was leaving in such a hurry. Could it be that the Empress's enemy was even more powerful and terrifying than the ancient king of gods? "It's time for us to leave," Jiangchen whispered. He came to the side of Jiu Tian, who had fainted. After carrying her, he flew off into the distance. Not long after they left, two figures, one red and one black, appeared in the area. The two of them each held a black and red scythe, and their bodies emitted the aura of reincarnation, especially their robes, which were engraved with ancient words, "Reincarnation Palace." This was an extremely mysterious force, and it was said that since ancient times, it had always controlled the road to reincarnation. Their existence, as the rumors said, was to hunt down reincarnation stowaways. For example, people like the Empress and Jiangchen were actually reincarnation stowaways. Now, these two beings, one black and one red, had appeared here. They were most likely here to hunt the Empress. "This little bug is too good at running," the red-robed being said. His voice was very stiff and even inarticulate, as if he hadn't spoken for a few centuries. "She can't run away. Reincarnation controls everything," the black being said softly. Then, the two of them disappeared. One day later, in Nine Heavens Sect, Jiangchen took Jiu Tian with him and used a teleportation formation in a city to enter the Nine Heavens Sect. The moment they returned, Jiu Qiansui and Jiu Tianzhong were alarmed, especially when they found out that there was Tao-melting liquid in Nine Heavens. Their expressions became extremely ugly. "The person who poisoned her is already dead, but there's a mysterious force behind him," Jiangchen said in a low voice. "We were ambushed on the way back. There's an ancient deity king behind the other party." "Ancient deity king?" Jiu Qiansui frowned and rubbed his chin, as if in deep thought. Jiu Tianzhong looked anxious as he constantly checked Jiu Tian's condition. He asked, "Can she still be saved?" "There's no poison in this world that can't be cured," Jiu Qiansui said. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Could it be them? "Who?" Jiu Tianzhong's eyes also flashed with a cold light. Looking at his expression, he already knew without needing Jiu Qiansui to speak. "Just a bunch of dogs. A bunch of traitorous dogs that rely on the reincarnation palace," Jiu Qiansui said coldly. "I didn't expect them to come out too. It seems that this time, They all have a premonition that a golden age is coming and want to get a share of it. Send her to the spirit-nourishing pool first. I'll think of a way, Jiu Qiansui said. When Jiu Tianzhong heard this, he immediately got up and left hurriedly with Jiu Tian. At this moment, Jiu Qiansui stared at Jiang Chun and asked, "Do you know about the Reincarnation Palace?" "I've heard of it." Jiang Chun nodded. "That's a bunch of dogs that think they control the lifeline of all living things in the world." Jiu Qiansui's killing intent surged. Back then, the seal of Jiutian dynasty had a lot to do with the Reincarnation Palace. "Oh, what kind of existence is the Reincarnation Palace?" Jiang Chun asked. "It's very special. I don't know the exact background. I only know that they can interfere with some matters of the Reincarnation Palace," Jiu Qiansui said. "Moreover, behind the Reincarnation Palace, there might be an even more terrifying force related to the Emperor God clan." "Emperor God clan?" Jiang Chun exclaimed softly. Jiang Chun had heard of the Emperor God clan. Back then, he even killed a descendant of the Emperor God clan at the Great Heaven Conference. However, Jiang Chun didn't know how strong the Emperor God clan was. However, since they could be called Emperor God, their foundation must be extremely deep. There are good and evil in the world. Even gods are the same. Jiu Qiansui sighed. Among the Emperor gods, there are also good and bad, and even those traitors. As far as I know, in the history of the Nine Heavens divine world, there have definitely been no less than 10 Emperor gods. And now, there are at least 5 who are suspected to be alive. These 5 people formed a forbidden zone on their own. They are not disturbed by outsiders and will not interfere with the matters of the outside world. Jiu Qiansui explained. However, there are also extremely few Emperor gods who are not like this. No less than 10? Formed a forbidden zone on their own? Jiang Chun said softly. Then, the forbidden zones in the Nine Heavens divine world are actually the dojos of those Emperor gods. Chapter 891. There were many forbidden areas in the world that ordinary people could not enter. There was only one outcome for those who entered the forbidden area: death. However, almost no one knew how the forbidden area was formed. Some people said that the forbidden area was a special place where the forces of heaven and earth gathered. It contained a special domain. When living beings entered it, they would be killed by the forces of heaven and earth in the domain and turned into ashes. Some people said that the forbidden area was once an ancient battlefield. There were heroic spirits and energy waves left behind after the battle. It was indestructible. Some people even guessed that the forbidden area was actually the entrance to another world. Back then, Jiang Chun had also guessed how the forbidden area was formed. However, he had never thought that the so-called forbidden area was actually the dojo of the Emperor of Gods. They had lived for countless years. Because of the Age of Doom and some special reasons, they chose to hibernate. They built their dojo and isolated it from the world. They did not allow anyone to disturb them. This was the reason why the forbidden area was formed. However, according to what Jiu Qiansui said next, Jiang Chun understood that some forbidden areas were indeed built by the Emperor of Gods. However, some forbidden areas had existed since ancient times. For example, the 3 most famous forbidden areas in the divine world of Nine Heavens: Heaven-Opening Ancient Mine, Thousand Shadow Maze, and Inverted Abyss. These 3 forbidden areas were said to have existed since the beginning of heaven and earth. As for the other forbidden areas, if one was lucky enough, they might be able to return alive. However, these 3 forbidden areas from ancient times until now, no living being who entered could come out alive. It could be said that these 3 places could no longer be described as forbidden areas. They should be described as danger zones. Let's not talk about the 3 forbidden areas for now. Let's talk about the 5 forbidden areas first. Jiu Qiansui said. Now, the most famous one should be the East Sea Forbidden Area. That place, I've heard of it. Jiang Chun said. It doesn't seem dangerous. That's for special people. It is indeed not dangerous. It can even be used as a protective umbrella. Jiu Qiansui said. Those who enter the East Sea Forbidden Area are mostly people who sneak into reincarnation. The owner of the East Sea Forbidden Area was rumored to be a big shot from the Reincarnation Palace. He later betrayed the Reincarnation Palace and built the East Sea Forbidden Area. According to Jiao Qinsui's guess, not everyone could enter the Forbidden Area of the East Sea. However, compared to the other forbidden areas, this forbidden area was the safest one. Furthermore, Jiao Qinsui also told Jiang Chun that the master of the East Sea's Forbidden Land seemed to have some sort of relationship with the Jiao. If something really happened in the future, he could use the name of the Jiao Imperial Court to seek protection in the East Sea's Forbidden Land. Jiang Chun chuckled at this. The Jiao dynasty was so powerful. What kind of mishap could happen to them? All in all, the master of the Eastern Sea Forbidden Land is not bad. Jiao Qinsui said, many ancient records say that the master of the East Sea Forbidden Area never comes out, and he has no descendants. He has never caused trouble in the continent of the Nine Clouds. From what you're saying, the masters of the other forbidden areas have caused trouble in the continent of the Nine Clouds. Jiang Chen asked curiously. No forbidden area is clean. Speaking of this, Zhu Qiansui was somewhat agitated. He told Jiang Chun that even the East Sea Forbidden Area was not clean. It was just that the master of the East Sea Forbidden Area hid it very well. As for the other forbidden areas, Zhu Qiansui said with a look of disdain, the chaos and darkness that have happened in the continent of the Nine Clouds since ancient times, which one has nothing to do with those forbidden areas? In the end, the source of the chaos and darkness comes from those forbidden areas. Zhu Qiansui said in a deep voice. What? That's impossible. Jiang Chen was shocked. He couldn't believe it. One had to know that those who could be called God Emperor were all creatures who had contributed greatly to the world. How could these people cause trouble in the continent of the Nine Clouds? Once, perhaps they were God Emperors revered by all living things, protecting all living things in the world. But now, they're all a group of unclean creatures. Their methods are dirty, bloody, tyrannical, and even ruthless. The most famous one is Poison God Emperor. This guy didn't do anything good after becoming a God Emperor, not to mention killing innocent people. He even used all living things to refine his poison. His methods can be said to be extremely cruel. If someone didn't make a move and injure him, do you think Poison God Emperor would be willing to hibernate in the Forbidden Area? At this point, Zhu Qiansui wiped his forehead as if he was a little tired. After taking a few breaths, he said, as for the other God Emperors, they are not good people either. Have you heard of the most famous Haotian God Emperor? He was once revered by the world, but now, God knows what he's doing. In short, it's not good. There are two other people. Do you think the Empress is a good thing? Among the many cracks on the southern wall, she has a part to play. Zhu Qiansui said coldly, trying to open the southern wall and merge with the boundless world. This is to destroy the continent of the Nine Clouds. This? Jiang Chen's expression was strange. He did not know if the Empress that Zhu Qiansui was talking about was the same person as the Empress he knew. But thinking about it, it shouldn't be, right? Zhu Qiansui, you've told me so much. What are you trying to say? Jiang Chen asked. From the injuries in the Nine Heavens, to the Reincarnation Palace, to the Forbidden Area, Zhu Qiansui said a lot. But the final meaning, Jiang Chen still did not understand. The Golden Age is coming. All the forbidden areas will make a move. Zhu Qiansui said in a deep voice, if one day we're no longer here, then the Nine Heavens Court will be handed over to you. What do you mean? You're leaving? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. Maybe. Wait for the Emperor's decision. Zhu Qiansui said, patting Jiang Chen's shoulder, and said, the Nine Heavens Court has its own mission. Now that the Emperor has come out, then it will have to complete this mission. You know, from the moment of birth, every living thing shoulders their own mission and responsibility. Zhu Qiansui sighed. There's no choice. Are we all leaving? Jiang Chen asked. What mission and responsibility? You don't need to worry about these things. Zhu Qiansui said. The prince and princess will stay, and so will the old divine king in the back mountain. As for the others, they will all leave. With that, A cold glint flashed in Juki Ansui's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "The princess's injury. It has a lot to do with you, right?" "This indeed has a lot to do with me." Jiang Chen sighed and expressed his apologies. "It's fine. It's just a mere Dao-melting liquid," Juki Ansui said, but the worry in his eyes could not be concealed. Then Juki Ansui left. No one knew where he went. Jiang Chen did not leave and stayed in the Nine Heavens sect, waiting for Juki Ansui's injury to recover. Time slowly passed. 1 month later, Juki Ansui's Dao-melting liquid was removed and his injury was healed. He appeared in front of Jiang Chen, alive and kicking. Chapter 892. Jiao Tian looked lively. Her cultivation had also recovered and her injuries were healed. There did not seem to be anything wrong. However, Jiang Chen's heart skipped a beat. His eyes shone brightly. They were like two bright moons gazing at the world, because he could feel that Jiao Tianxia had changed. If the former Jiao Tianxia was a witch with an extremely murderous nature, then the current her was a pure and innocent fairy. This contrast was too great. "Silly girl?" At this moment, Jiao Tianxia skipped to Jiang Chen's side and blinked her pure big eyes, saying, "I remember you. You're silly girl." "What? Remember me?" Jiang Chen frowned. These words did not sound right no matter how he heard them. She lost her memories. At this time, Jiao Tianzhong came in with a worried expression and sighed. The Dao-melting elixir might have been removed, but his soul was damaged. His soul is somewhat damaged and his memories are incomplete. He only remembers a few things that are extremely important to him. At this point, Jiao Tianzhong's expression became strange. He stared at Jiang Chen and said, "Do you know who she still remembers now?" "Me?" Jiang Chen asked probingly. "And how many of your relatives?" "No." Jiao Tianzhong smiled bitterly and covered his eyes, saying, "She only remembers you, this." Jiang Chen was in a mess. Looking at Jiao Tianxia, who was like a fairy, his brows twitched. Before she lost her memories, how much hatred did Jiao Tianxia have for him? After losing her memories, she did not even remember the people closest to her. She only remembered him, this enemy. Jiao Tianzhong was also very depressed. He stared at Jiang Chen and muttered, "Between you and her, is there really some irreconcilable enmity? If you say there is enmity, actually it can't be considered enmity," Jiang Chen said softly. "But if you say there is no enmity, actually it can be considered a little. But it can't be that deep, right?" Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. She had forgotten everything and only remembered him. This was a little ridiculous, right? Jiao Qiansui went out with Imperial Father. "They still don't know about this matter," Jiao Tianzhong said in a deep voice. "This matter is your responsibility." "That is true." Jiang Chen nodded. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't go to the yin-yang twin energy spring, why would the Nine Heavens go there? Why would he be affected by the Tao liquid? "How do you want me to take responsibility?" Jiang Chen asked seriously. "Look at her now. She only remembers you. Let her stay by your side. We'll talk about it when Father and Juki Ansui return," Jiao Tianzhong said. "Furthermore, you are the Grand Tutor appointed by Imperial Father. You are her master. It is only right for her to stay by your side." This, Jiang Chen frowned, but after thinking for a while, he agreed. If it was before, with Nine Heavens' personality, Jiang Chen really wouldn't be willing to bother with her. But now, Jiang Chen could accept it. However, Jiang Chen also felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. If it weren't for him, Nine Heavens wouldn't have become like this. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen walked to Jiao Tian's side, patted her head, and asked with a smile, "Little Xia, if you want anything, just tell Master. If you suffer any grievances in the future, Master will stand up for you." "Master?" Nine Heavens tilted her head, as if she only remembered this person and forgot that Jiang Chen was the master that Jiao Shun had personally appointed to her. However, Nine Heavens quickly became happy. She held on to Jiang Chen's arm and said, "Great, little Xia has a master now." Sigh. Jiao Tianzhong let out a long sigh. He still liked the Nine Heavens from before. But in this situation, he had no choice. Perhaps when Jiu Tian's cultivation was higher, her incomplete soul would be able to be replenished. Have you found out the power behind Saito? Jiang Chen asked this matter. Even if you are willing to let it go, I won't. Found it. Killing intent suddenly appeared in Jiu Tianzhong's eyes as he coldly said, a power under Poison God Emperor called High Heaven Pavilion. High Heaven Pavilion? This is a power under Poison God Emperor? Jiang Chen softly exclaimed. Jiang Chen also had some understanding of High Heaven Pavilion. This was an ancient power that was established in the ancient times. Its most glorious time was at the end of the ancient times. After that, because a god king of High Heaven Pavilion's blood chi dried up, High Heaven Pavilion began to decline and finally faded out of the world's sight. However, even if High Heaven Pavilion faded out of the world's sight, its reputation was still there. After all, at the end of the ancient times, High Heaven Pavilion unified the entire Nine Heavens divine world. And what Jiang Chen didn't expect was that High Heaven Pavilion was actually a power under Poison God Emperor. Could it be that when High Heaven Pavilion unified the Nine Heavens divine world, it was because of Poison God Emperor's support? Let's not care about Poison God Emperor first. As far as I know, High Heaven Pavilion should be coming out. Jiu Tianzhong solemnly said, this power is extremely powerful. The ancient god king you met before is only one of them. In High Heaven Pavilion, there should be another god king. When these words came out, Jiang Chen's heart fiercely jumped. In one power, there were two god kings? This foundation was too deep, right? If this was really the case, then how is he going to take revenge? With Jiang Chen's current strength, he didn't have the qualifications to take revenge on High Heaven Pavilion. Jiu Shun and Jiu Qiansui also went out and didn't know when they would return. The current Nine Heavens sect strength was also not at its peak. Then, this enmity should be put aside? That ancient god king from before, I think he won't make a move for the time being. Jiu Tianzhong looked at Jiang Chen meaningfully and said, since you can come back alive from the hands of that ancient god king, I think, yes, someone helped me. Jiang Chen directly said, and that ancient god king should be injured. In this way, we don't have to be afraid of High Heaven Pavilion. Jiu Tianzhong analyzed, if we use the power of the Nine Heavens Court now, we can fight against High Heaven Pavilion. But the Emperor hasn't returned yet. Jiang Chen said, so this matter will have to wait. Jiu Tianzhong was also helpless. If he wanted to mobilize the top experts of the Nine Heavens Court, only Jiu Shun's imperial decree could do it. Otherwise, he, as a prince, couldn't mobilize them. My heart is stifled. Jiang Chen sighed. If he didn't take revenge, his heart would not feel good. Why don't we go visit the mountain? Jiu Tianzhong's eyes flashed coldly. Looking at Jiu Tian, who had lost his memory, a trace of tenderness and pity flashed in his eyes. However, visiting the mountain was not an ordinary matter. It was tantamount to provocation. If he didn't prepare well, he might not be able to return. To be honest, I can't take this lying down, Jiu Tianzhong said solemnly. Then let's go visit the mountain. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, but he still asked, what if the other party bullies the weak? Just the two of us, can we go? They dare? Jiu Tianzhong glared, announced that my Nine Heavens sect is going to visit High Heaven Pavilion. At that time, in front of so many people, High Heaven Pavilion won't be able to lower their face to bully the weak. Chapter 893. Top sects, especially those that had once enjoyed their glory days, cared more about their reputation. Jiu Tianzhong was very clear that if he and Jiang Chen went to High Heaven Pavilion to pay a visit, it would be a disaster. However, if they announced it to the world and let everyone know about it, then what tricks would High Heaven Pavilion dare to play? Jiang Chen was most worried that High Heaven Pavilion would bully the weak, relying on the experts in their force to suppress them. However, after announcing it to the world, High Heaven Pavilion would definitely not have the face to do such a thing. Moreover, Jiu Tianzhong was the prince of the Nine Heavens Court, and also the holy son of Nine Heavens sect. Under these two identities, High Heaven Pavilion would not dare to do anything to Jiu Tianzhong. As for Jiang Chun, he was now the Grand Tutor of the Nine Heavens Court, and his status was noble, equal to Jiu Qiansui. With this identity, High Heaven Pavilion would not dare to do anything overboard to him. In this time, going to High Heaven Pavilion, revenge was definitely impossible, but at least they could give High Heaven Pavilion some color. Otherwise, Jiang Chun and the Nine Heavens Corps would feel suffocated. If there really is an accident, there is nothing to worry about. It's not like High Heaven Pavilion is the only one with a divine king. Jiu Tianzhong said in a deep voice, "In terms of divine kings, my Nine Heavens Court is no less than them." Oh? Jiang Chun was stunned and asked curiously, "How many divine kings does Nine Heavens Court have?" "Currently, there is only one." Jiu Tianzhong's face turned red, and he looked a little embarrassed. There are still a few who are sleeping to maintain their vitality. "How many are there?" Jiang Chun asked. Cough, cough, there should be 3 to 5 more. Jiu Tianzhong was not very sure. After all, when Nine Heavens Court was defeated and collectively sealed, he and Jiu Tian were sent out to be sealed. At that time, they were still young and ignorant, and they were not very clear about the foundation of Nine Heavens Court. However, Jiu Tianzhong was sure that there was definitely more than one divine king in Nine Heavens Court. After hearing these words, Jiang Chun was immediately filled with confidence. The golden age of the Nine Heavens divine world had not truly arrived, and divine kings were the strongest battle power. Of course, except for a very special existence like Jiu Shun. "Master, I want to go too." Under the ninth heaven tugged on Jiang Chun's sleeves and blinked his pure eyes. "Master, I want to go." "Are we bringing her along?" Jiang Chun looked at Nine Heavens layers. "Bring it with you. After all, this time we are helping her vent her anger." Jiu Tianzhong said. 3 days later, we will set off. After saying this, the Nine Heavens left, preparing to draw up a decree. Announce this to the world. At this moment, under the Nine Heavens tugged on Jiang Chun's arm. He blinked his eyes and asked with a smile, "Master, what should we do now?" "Of course it's to cultivate," Jiang Chun said with a smile. When he looked at Jiu Tian, a hint of guilt flashed in the depths of his eyes. If not for him, the Nine Skies wouldn't be like this. "Do you still remember what cultivation method you used to cultivate?" Jiang Chun asked. Jiu Tian shook his head with a confused expression. "I don't remember anything." Let me take a look first." Jiang Chun frowned. Jiu Tian's memory lost this time could be said to be very serious. He even forgot the cultivation method imprinted in his soul. After that, Jiang Chun separated a strand of divine consciousness and entered the depths of Jiu Tian's soul. After a few breaths, Jiang Chun's expression changed greatly, because he saw that Jiu Tian's soul was actually pure white. There were no imprints of any cultivation method, not even the imprints of divine skills or Dao skills. Obviously, under the Nine Heavens had lost her memory and completely forgotten everything in the past. It was even directly erased from her soul. "My God, how much resentment did you have towards me back then? You forgot all your cultivation methods, divine skills, Dao skills, and yet you still remember me." Jiang Chun felt guilty. He didn't do anything to under the Nine Heavens before. This little girl, is she really so vengeful? This is your Dao spirit? After probing for a while, Jiang Chun's expression turned serious. He saw that there was a blood-colored long saber floating in Jiu Tian's soul. However, on the long saber, there was a layer of dust-like thing. Moreover, there were Dao chains that sealed the long saber. This is not a man-made seal, but it hasn't awakened yet? Jiang Chun was shocked. The long saber was Jiu Tian's Dao spirit, and the dust on the Dao spirit was covered in dust. The dust covering the Dao spirit was the manifestation of the Dao spirit not awakening yet. Could it be that even Jiu Shun doesn't know that she has a Dao spirit? Jiang Chun muttered. If Jiu Shun knew, with his methods, he would definitely help under the Nine Heavens remove the dust and release the Dao spirit. This murderous aura? What kind of Dao spirit is this? Jiang Chun's divine consciousness penetrated deep into under the Nine Heavens soul. When it came into contact with that Tao spirit, Jiang Qin's divine consciousness was almost cut open. It was because there seemed to be a terrifying and endless murderous aura within the blood-red long saber, as if it wanted to kill all living things in the world. Looking at the blood-red blade and the totem of 100 ghosts engraved on the handle, which was taller than a man, Jiang Qin suddenly thought of two words, greedy ghost. However, Jiang Qin was not sure. It was rumored that this Tao spirit was completely sealed by someone, and it should not appear on any living thing. Back then, in an ancient era, there was a living thing that possessed the greedy ghost Tao spirit, and it caused endless slaughter. There were even rumors that the sky of that era was dyed red with blood. The greedy ghost's murderous aura was too strong, and it lived by killing. It was the most terrifying and one of the most difficult Tao spirits to control in the world. It was as famous as Tian Shui's Azura Tao spirit. It was also because the greedy ghost's murderous aura was too strong that it caused endless slaughter. Therefore, there was a sage who completely sealed this Tao spirit in the void of the Tao, not allowing it to appear again. I didn't expect it to really be the greedy ghost. After an hour, Jiang Qin finally confirmed that the Tao spirit of the Nine Heavens was the legendary greedy ghost. This saber was greedy, but it was not greedy for wealth, but for the lives of all living things in the world. And the dust on this Tao spirit was most likely the seal left behind by the sage. Maybe because it was too long ago, the seal loosened, which caused this Tao spirit to be freed from the Tao, and finally became the Tao spirit of the Nine Heavens. However, there was a trace of this seal, so the Tao spirit of the Nine Heavens did not awaken, and the Tao spirit of the Nine Heavens did not discover it. No wonder your murderous aura was so strong in the past, so that's why. Jiang Qin was relieved. Previously, Jiang Qin was very puzzled. It was normal for the Nine Heavens to be unruly at such a young age, but there was no way she would have such a strong murderous aura. Now, everything could be explained clearly. The murderous aura of the Nine Heavens came from her Tao spirit. Greedy ghost. Master, why are you staring at the saber on my soul? At this moment, the Nine Heavens suddenly opened his mouth and asked curiously. Without waiting for Jiang Qin to speak, the Nine Heavens smiled and said, Master, you like this saber, right? I'll give it to you. This saber is your Tao spirit. If you can't take it out, you can't give it to me. Jiang Qin smiled, but in the next moment his expression changed. Chapter 894. Right now, Jiutian was very pure. Her soul was like a painting that had never been tainted with ink. She could feel that Jiang Qin was looking at her Tao soul. Just as she finished speaking, a red light flashed in her hand. The life-greedy ghost had appeared. What the F***? Jiang Qin was confused. His body kept retreating. This was because the life-greedy ghost's murderous aura was too terrifying. Like a blood-red wind, it enveloped Jiutian. Even the surrounding air was filled with the stench of blood. However, what was surprising was that Jiutian was still so pure and pure. Even though she was enveloped by the blood-red aura and murderous aura, she was still as pure as ever. Jiang Qin's eyes widened. This life-greedy ghost was released just like that. Awakened? That can't be right? Jiang Qin was confused. One had to know that there was still a layer of dust on the life-greedy ghost. That was the seal of an ancient sage. Even though there was only a strand of the seal left, it couldn't be broken so easily. Master, this is for you. Jiutian didn't even know that this was her Tao soul. She took a step forward and sent the life-greedy ghost to Jiang Qin. At that moment, Jiang Qin's hair stood on end. He was about to explode. This murderous aura was comparable to lightning. It was like a heavenly punishment. It was too terrifying. Even though Jiang Qin's body was extremely strong, he still felt a piercing pain on his skin. Even his soul and divine soul were affected. Xiaoxia, this is your Tao soul, Jiang Qin said seriously. You can't give it away. Oh, Jiutian pouted. She looked a little unhappy. But I want to give it to Master. This can't be given away. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. How could he give away something like a Tao soul, just like that? However, what Jiang Chun was more curious about at the moment was how the nine heavens had broken the dusty seal. You. How did you summon the life-greedy ghost? Jiang Chun asked. Huh? Nine Skies was confused and scratched his head. I just wanted it to come out, and it came out. After saying that, Under the Nine Skies had a look of disdain on his face. What an ugly blade. Why is it in my soul? I can make it come out just because I want it to? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. Was the ancient sage's seal that weak? No. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes and stared at Greedy Ghost. He realized that there were streaks of blood-colored radiance on the blade that merged with the nine heavens. At the same time, in the souls of the nine heavens, wisps of pure white chi appeared and merged with the killing intent of the Greedy Ghost. Yes, the most violent killing intent and the purest soul under the nine heavens. Jiang Chun felt relieved. This was equivalent to one yin and one yang. When the two merged, the seal was naturally broken. This was perhaps a coincidence, or perhaps it was predestined. If Under the Nine Heavens didn't lose his memory this time, this greedy ghost might never be born. A kind and pure soul, coupled with the violent killing intent of the greedy ghost, sin and kindness, light and darkness, all the factors merged together. Jiang Chun said softly, but a look of worry flashed past his eyes. This was because the killing intent of the greedy ghost was too strong. Jiang Chun was worried that Under the Nine Heavens wouldn't be able to control the greedy ghost and would be devoured by the killing intent, turning into a killing machine. But after 10 breaths, Jiang Chun was shocked to find that Under the Nine Heavens didn't change. His soul was still pure and white, without a trace of stain. And this greedy ghost was also very quiet in the hands of Under the Nine Heavens. Although the killing intent was endless, it was firmly controlled by Under the Nine Heavens. This is really eye-opening, Jiang Chun said softly, and said to Under the Nine Heavens, Little Xia, from now on, don't summon this spirit out, understand? Okay. Under the Nine Heavens nodded obediently and pouted. It's so ugly, I don't want it. But I can't throw it away. Under the Nine Heavens muttered. Wang! As soon as he said that, there was a fluctuation in the greedy ghost. There was even a drop of blood dripping down from the greedy ghost. Holy sh**t. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're so aggrieved that you're crying? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He could feel that the greedy ghost seemed to have its own consciousness. There was a trace of grievance in the killing intent that it was emitting at this moment. So ugly, let's put it back. Under the Nine Heavens' hands, the greedy ghost was sent back into his soul. I have to think of a way. Jiang Chun frowned. Although Under the Nine Heavens could control the greedy ghost, it was inevitable that there would be some accidents. If Under the Nine Heavens were to be devoured by the greedy ghost one day, it would be a big problem. All right. Half an hour later, Jiang Chun finally thought of a way. He had read many cultivation techniques in front of him, and there were quite a number of top cultivation techniques. Jiang Chun thought for a long time and thought of a cultivation technique that could suppress the greedy ghost's killing intent. Little Xia, you've even forgotten your cultivation technique now. Why don't I teach you a cultivation technique? What do you think? Jiang Chun asked. Okay. Jiu Tian's little face was flushed red, looking very excited. This is the Buddhist school's grand ceremony, the Bodhi Sacred Formula. Jiang Chun pointed at the Bodhi Sacred Formula and imparted the cultivation method to Jiu Tian. This cultivation technique was the cultivation technique of ancient Buddha Xuanji. Ancient Buddha Xuanji could be said to be Jiang Chun's guardian back then. There were rumors that ancient Buddha Xuanji had passed away and was in the ancient temple of the Void God world. Jiang Chun had always wanted to investigate, but had never had the time. The Bodhi Sacred Mantra was created by ancient Buddha Xuanji. This cultivation technique was known as the sacred scripture of Buddhism, but it was not passed down in Buddhism. Instead, it was obtained by Jiang Chun. Back then, when ancient Buddha Xuanji gave the Bodhi sacred technique to Jiang Chun, It was to let Jiang Chun maintain his original heart and prevent him from being corrupted by benefits and darkness. Little Xia, cultivate this cultivation technique well. It's very useful, Jiang Chun said. It can let you maintain your original heart and calm your mind. Okay, thank you, Master. Jiu Tian was very happy. She was like a child who was very curious about the Bodhi's sacred technique. She quickly sat down cross-legged and comprehended the cultivation technique. In just a dozen breaths of time, strands of Buddhist light suddenly erupted from the 9 heavens, and behind his head, a Buddhist halo appeared. Jiang Qin was dumbfounded. She had just started cultivating, and she had already achieved a small success. A person with a pure heart and soul can cultivate the Bodhi's sacred technique very quickly, Jiang Qin muttered. He did not know if Jiu Tian could cultivate this cultivation technique to the extreme. If she cultivated it to the extreme, there might be a second ancient Buddha Xuanji in this world. Master, look behind me. There's a halo. Sai, it's so beautiful. Jiu Tian suddenly woke up and pointed at the back of her head, but she could not touch the Buddhist halo. Little Xia, you're very powerful. You have to work hard. Jiang Qin smiled, but he was very shocked. This was because he had also cultivated this cultivation technique. In the end, after cultivating for more than 100 years, not a single Buddhist light appeared. Chapter 895. Jiu Tian's talent was already very good. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a monster. However, Jiu Tian had no interest in cultivation before and was very lazy. Now it was different. Jiu Tian listened to Jiang Chun and seemed to be interested in cultivation. Just like that, Jiu Tian and Jiang Chun stayed together in a palace in Jiu Tian's sect, each minding their own business. Sometimes Jiu Tian would make a fuss, but most of the time, it was just acting cute. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, all the top sects received the news that Jiu Tianzhong, the holy son of Jiu Tian's sect, had gone to visit High Heaven Pavilion. When this news spread, it immediately caused a huge uproar. Jiu Tian's sect has always been high profile, but isn't the opponent they found a little too strong? That's High Heaven Pavilion, the overlord of a certain era. It is said that there is an ancient divine king hibernating in the pavilion. Many people were discussing this matter, thinking that Jiu Tian's sect had kicked an iron plate this time, but there were some who didn't think so. This was because many people suspected that Jiu Tian's sect had the backing of Jiu Tian dynasty, even if Jiu Tian dynasty hadn't appeared in front of the world yet. But even more people believed that Jiu Tian dynasty had most likely come out. Otherwise, how could a mere Jiu Tian sect that had been established for around 3,000 years have such a style of doing things? What qualifications did they have to be so high profile? This trip is to establish our might. In the depths of Jiu Tian's sect's back mountain, Jiu Tianzhong stood in front of a dusty cave with his head lowered. And the one hibernating in this cave was the old divine king of Jiu Tian's sect. Establishing our might? Jiu Tianzhong's eyes flashed, and he nodded. Old ancestor, Poison God Emperor, is behind High Heaven Pavilion. No matter. The old divine king transmitted his voice. Let the world know that Jiu Tian dynasty still exists. Yes. Jiu Tianzhong nodded respectfully and left. Soon, he found Jiang Chun and said with a serious expression, Old ancestor has spoken. This trip to High Heaven Pavilion is not only to help little sister vent her anger, but also to establish our might. Establishing our might? Then won't this matter blow up? Jiang Chun asked. Of course, if we don't make a big fuss, how can we establish our might? Jiu Tianzhong's expression was very serious. It was all because he wasn't confident. High Heaven Pavilion was not weak. There was a God King overseeing the sect, and every disciple was a genius. If he wanted to establish his prestige, the best way was to defeat the top disciples of High Heaven Pavilion. However, Jiu Tianzhong was also clear that High Heaven Pavilion had been able to stand tall for so long. Their heritage was very deep, and their foundation was very strong. None of the top disciples under them were easy to deal with. Leave those below the level of a god to me, Jiangchen said softly. I can't deal with those at the level of a god right now. This? Are you sure? Zhou Tianzhong's face was filled with doubt and disbelief. Your cultivation is only that of a lower true god. It's not like I haven't killed cultivators below the level of a venerable god. Jiang Chun pursed his lips. You can't judge my combat strength by the standards of an ordinary person. Following that, Jiang Chun looked at Nine Heaven's heavy layer again and asked, What about you? Do you have the confidence to face a god or a titled god? Cultivators at the level of a god shouldn't be a problem, but titled gods, I'm afraid it will be a little difficult. Nine Heaven's heavy layer didn't act pretentious and said bluntly, You also know that titled gods are different from ordinary people. Their combat strength is extremely strong, and they can even contend with the king god. This time, since I want to establish my prestige, I must fight those above my level. Otherwise, how can I establish my prestige? Zhou Tianzhong sighed helplessly. Zhou Tianzhong was very clear about his own strength. No matter how strong a god was, he could deal with him. At least he wouldn't lose. However, if he encountered a titled god, the result would be hard to say. Do you want me to call a few helpers? Jiangchen said, Call a few people who can contend with a titled god. If so, that would be the best. Zhou Tianzhong nodded. But at this time, where could he find such people? Even if the other party could really suppress a titled god, they might not necessarily help him. Call my senior brothers. Jiangchen smiled and said, You don't need to call anyone else. Just call the smiling god. With his cultivation at the level of a god, he can suppress a titled god. As soon as these words came out, Zhou Tianzhong's face fell. He stared at Jiang Chun and said angrily, Everyone knows that the smiling god isn't from Jiutian's sect. So what? He joined Jiutian's sect temporarily. He could just find an excuse. What can Lingxiao Pavilion do? Jiang Chun joked. I'll contact my senior brothers now. We'll set off later. This is fine, Zhou Tianzhong said softly. However, before Jiang Chun could contact them, a guard hurriedly ran over and said, Saint, there's a guy called Must Lose Every Bet outside. He said that he has something important to discuss with Silly Girl. Must Lose Every Bet? Zhou Tianzhong frowned. He had never heard of this name. However, when Jiang Chun heard this name, he immediately became excited and said, Hey, he should be here to give me money. After saying that, Jiang Chun got up and went to the mountain gate of Jiutian's sect. It's been so hard looking for you. Must Lose Every Bet grumbled when he saw Jiang Chun. Then, he excitedly walked to Jiang Chun and took out a space ring. He raised his eyebrows and said, This is the part that you deserve from the last bet. How much do you have? Jiang Chun asked. You'll know when you see it. Must Lose Every Bet said sneakily. We'll work together again in the future. Okay. Jiang Chun nodded and opened the space ring. When he saw 60 drops of Source of Tao arranged neatly inside, he almost screamed. 60 drops? Jiang Chun exclaimed. So many? There's also Dragon Transformation Fruit and Bloodline Fruit. Take a look. Is it enough? Must Lose Every Bet patted Jiang Chun's shoulder and said, As long as you work with my 1,000 Years Gambling House, you'll earn a lot. Yes, we'll work together more in the future. Jiang Chun was excited. With these things, his Dragon Vein and Tiger Bone could probably evolve. As for his Tao spirits, they would most likely be able to level up once too. Right? Isn't the 1,000 Years Gambling House a gambling house? This time, do you want to make money? Jiang Chun said, Zhou Tianzhong, and I will go to High Heaven Pavilion and announce it to the world. This time, there should be a lot of people watching the battle. You mean to open a gambling house? Must Lose Every Bet's eyes lit up. What kind of gambling? Gambling on whether we can succeed, Jiang Chun said. Simply put, this time, we'll go to High Heaven Pavilion and bet on whether we can slap their face. This, I'm afraid it won't work. Must Lose Every Bet frowned and said, High Heaven Pavilion's foundation is very deep. So, I want to borrow some people from your 1,000 Years Gambling House. It's best if they're unfamiliar and their cultivation isn't too high. It's best if they're extremely strong. Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and said, "How about it? This is a big deal." Chapter 896. Jiangchen originally wanted to invite the smiling god to accompany them to visit the mountain. After all, the smiling god's battle prowess was extremely strong, able to contend with a main god. However, the smiling god's reputation in the ninth heaven divine world was too big, and even if he suppressed the top disciples of High Heaven Pavilion, it would still cause dissatisfaction. But now, every bet lose had come knocking, so this matter was much easier to handle. The Thousand Autumns Gambling House specialized in gambling. They were strong, had a deep foundation, and had countless experts, guests, and guests. The most important thing was that the Thousand Years Gambling House did all sorts of shady things. Therefore, all of their consecrators and guests were using fake identities. They were unfamiliar with all of them. Some of them were lone wolves, while others were experts from other sects. It was just that very few people had seen them before. And these people were the best candidates to go to High Heaven Pavilion. "Even you don't think I can succeed," Jiangchen joked. "Then, do you think others will think so? You mean, I'll lend you some experts so you can succeed?" Every bet lose narrowed his eyes and suddenly laughed. "You're really sinister, but I like it." "Agreed?" Jiangchen asked. Who wouldn't agree to a profitable business? Every bet lose smiled, rubbing his chin, frowning, and muttering. Who should I call, since he was borrowing people to visit the mountain? Naturally, he couldn't let others know about this person's background. Every bet lose's thinking was very meticulous. After carefully thinking for a while, his eyes lit up. "Although my Thousand Autumns Gambling House has many guests, but this kind of thing on the surface, very few people are willing to come forward. Then what do we do?" Jiangchen frowned. "Simple. There's a force that likes to do this kind of thing, and I heard that this force has a grudge with High Heaven Pavilion." Every bet lose joked. "Which one?" "Absolute Shadow Sect." Every bet lose raised his eyebrows. "You should be more familiar with Absolute Shadow Sect, right? Young Master Liu Ying has a good relationship with you, right?" "Absolute Shadow Sect? Can you contact the Extinction Shadow Sect?" Jiangchen was stunned. He shook his head and said, "The Extreme Shadow Sect is a group of assassins. Would they be willing to do it without a great reward?" "Oh, to deal with High Heaven Pavilion. They can't wait to find a good reason to act." "Lose," every bet said. Finished speaking, Bet Lose waved his hand and said, "You go to High Heaven Pavilion first. I'll go contact Extinction Shadow Sect now. I guarantee you everything will be fine." "Are you sure? Don't mess it up," Jiangchen said solemnly. "This matter can be big or small. The Nine Heaven Sect's old ancestor has already given the order. This time, not only are we going to pay respects to the mountain, but we are also going to establish our might." "Oh, Nine Heavens Sect's old ancestor?" You will lose. His eyes twinkled. He smiled and asked, "Is it the ancestor of the Nine Heavens Sect or the Nine Heavens Imperial Court?" "This, from what you've said, you should understand, right? Why are you asking when you already know the answer?" Jiangchen said angrily. At the same time, he was amazed by the strength of Thousand Years Gambling House. To be able to investigate such a matter, it seemed that Thousand Years Gambling House was not simple. In the end, Bet Lose left. Jiangchen and Zhou stepped onto the teleportation array. 10 breaths later, the two walked out of the spatial tunnel and arrived at a small town 100 miles away from 10,000 Insects Valley. Ever since High Heaven Pavilion had gone into seclusion, they had moved to 10,000 Insects Valley. It was rumored that the Poison God Emperor's training ground was in the deepest part of 10,000 Insects Valley. This place was very remote and desolate. The only thing that was abundant here was poisonous insects. The poisonous insects here were extremely strong, and their toxicity was terrifying. It was said that the strongest poisonous insect here was comparable to a peak over God, and the strongest poisonous insect was enough to kill a divine king. Therefore, within 100 miles of 10,000 Insects Valley, there were very few living creatures. There was only this small town. Usually, there were not many people in this small town. Occasionally, people would pass by, and rest here. However, today this small town was very lively. This was because after Zhou Tianchong announced to the world that he wanted to pay respects to High Heaven Pavilion, many forces had sent people over and moved into this small town. They all knew that if they wanted to enter High Heaven Pavilion, the first step was to enter this small town. Otherwise, if they rashly entered 10,000 Insects Valley, they would be surrounded by poisonous insects and even die. Anyone who wants to enter High Heaven Pavilion will wait in this small town. Someone from High Heaven Pavilion will come to pick you up. Zhou Tianchong explained, looks like it will be very lively this time. So many people. Jiangchen looked around. Not only did he see some geniuses, but there were also a few over-gods. As for Xian gods and supreme gods, there were a lot of cultivators. Most importantly, from the way they were dressed, they all came from top sects. Silly girl, I haven't seen you for a few days. How did you join Jiutian sect? At this moment, a familiar figure walked over. Luing? Jiang Chun was stunned. The young master of Extinction Shadow sect dared to walk openly in the world now. One had to know that Extinction Shadow sect had many enemies. If not for the fact that Extinction Shadow sect was well hidden, it would have been destroyed long ago. As the young master of Extinction Shadow sect, Luing naturally received special attention. Some people even had murderous intent rising from them. Ha! Do they dare to kill me? Luing joked. There are many people here who have the strength to kill me, but do they dare? If they dare to kill me openly, do you think Extinction Shadow sect will let them go? At that time, their sects will be targeted and assassinated by all the assassins of Extinction Shadow sect. Jiangchen heard this and nodded. Lu Ying's words were very reasonable. What are you doing here? Jiangchen asked. Of course I'm here to see you go visit the sect. Lu Ying's expression was strange. Just the three of you? No, to be precise, it's the two of us. Jiang Chun pointed to Zhou Tianchong. Just the two of you going to visit the sect? Your courage is really big. Luing rolled her eyes and said, do you really think High Heaven Pavilion is a weak chicken? As soon as he finished speaking, you will lose every bet suddenly appeared. Then, a black shadow followed him and landed beside Jiang Chun. I borrowed him. There's no problem with this guy. You will lose every bet said, but his face was full of pain. Extinction Shadow sect is really black-hearted. I just borrowed a person, but they want to take 30% of the profits from this bet. This group of bastards is really more black-hearted than my 1,000 years gambling house. Jiangchen heard this, coughed a few times, pointed to Luing, whose face was already black, and said, look at who this is. Take back what you just said. This is... You will lose every bet, saw Luing, and his face suddenly changed. Then a smile bloomed on his face. I was just joking. My 1,000 years gambling house and Extinction Shadow sect are close friends. We are sworn brothers. Oh, is that so? Luing said in a deep voice. My Extinction Shadow sect is black-hearted? Your 1,000 years gambling house is not black-hearted? Don't think I don't know that the bet at the last Hao Tian meeting was done by 1,000 years gambling house. Chapter 897. 1,000 Years Gambling House and Extinction Shadow Sect were both dark forces. They were considered giants in the dark world. Between the two forces, they knew each other and had planted some spies. Therefore, Extinction Shadow Sect knew everything about 1,000 Years Gambling House's gambling at the Haotian Convention. That's why I was wondering why the profits were so much less when we settled the accounts. So it was your Extinction Shadow Sect who did it secretly. It's all on Chinjulu? Every bet must lose, said angrily. What? Do you want me to suffer a loss? Luing said angrily. As soon as he finished speaking, Luing froze. Looking at the black figure beside Jiang Chun, she said in a deep voice, Why are you here? Sect leader asked me to come. The black shadow bowed to Luing and said, He asked me to help silly girl visit Lingxiao Pavilion. Lose every bet. You can even invite the heaven-class assassin of Extinction Shadow Sect. Luing said softly. There was no lack of assassins in Extinction Shadow Sect. Every assassin had a ranking and the highest was the heaven class. The black shadow in front of her was the heaven class assassin of Extinction Shadow sect, known as Blackface. Luing knew a little about Blackface. He had become a titled god a few years ago, and his assassination skills were very profound. He was the best among the heaven class assassins and was ranked 5th. Such people usually didn't take action unless there was an important mission. Is he very strong? Jiangchen asked. He didn't know Blackface's strength. How do I put it? Luing frowned as if she didn't know how to explain. After thinking for a while, Luing said, simply put, 13 overgods have died in his hands, and 2 of them were peak overgods. Hiss. Jiangchen took a deep breath when he heard that. This guy killed 2 peak overgods? Then, wouldn't this visit to the mountain be a done deal? How is it? I'm reliable, right? Lu's every bet smiled and said, okay, now we're waiting for you to enter Lingxiao Pavilion. I'll open a gambling house here. The people who are here today are all from the top sections. They're rich and overbearing. I reckon we'll make a fortune. Every bet Must Lu's eyes shone brightly, as if he could already see a large sum of money entering his pocket. Same old rules. Give me what I deserve, Jiangchen said. Don't worry. Must Lu's every bet laughed. Jiutian Chong didn't say anything. As the prince of the Jiutian imperial court, he didn't want to join forces with these dark forces. However, in order to establish his authority, he endured it this time. What? Are you looking down on us? Luing saw through 9 Heavens Heavy Stone's thoughts and said jokingly, sometimes you all, these forces on the surface, still have no choice but to cooperate with us. Che. Jiutian Zhong curled his lips, not wanting to argue. Afterwards, Jiangchen and the others entered an inn and waited for High Heaven Pavilion to pick them up. As for Must Lu's every bet, he was busy setting up a gambling house and had no time to chat with Jiangchen and the others. As for Luing, she didn't know where she went. She always appeared and disappeared mysteriously. It seems that High Heaven Pavilion is about to come out. This time, the divine world of 9 heavens will be lively. High Heaven Pavilion coming out, some forces will be in trouble. In the inn, many people were discussing High Heaven Pavilion. Especially when they heard that High Heaven Pavilion was about to come out, more people thought of the top forces in the divine world of 9 heavens. For example, the Light Clan, Martial God's lineage, Kunlun Mountain, Ao Lai Tian sect, etc. These forces were extremely powerful, but it seemed that there were no god kings in these forces. The strongest seemed to be a half-step god king. Then, if High Heaven Pavilion with a god king in charge came out, wouldn't these original top forces be driven off the altar? And these sects had always been high and mighty. How could they submit to High Heaven Pavilion? Thinking about it, there would be a few big battles. In fact, some sects might even be destroyed. The most anxious ones are probably those top gods. Someone joked, if they don't step into the God King realm before High Heaven Pavilion comes out, then in the future, this divine world of 9 heavens will have no place for them to speak. Light Master God, Martial God, Darkness Master God, these veteran top gods don't have time to intervene in the affairs of the world right now. They are all in seclusion to break through to the God King realm. I'm really looking forward to it. A big storm. The forces of the divine world of 9 heavens are going to be reshuffled. Hearing these words, Jiangchen's heart also tensed up. He was very clear that the golden age of the divine world of 9 heavens was about to begin, and before that, those ancient sects and forces would also come out. At that time, God Kings would be visible, and even peak gods wouldn't be considered the strongest combat power. And he was only a lower true god now. Although his combat power was extremely formidable compared to those top powerhouses, he was still a long way off. I don't have much time left. Jiangchen sighed. A golden age, to him, was not only an opportunity, but also a kind of training and disaster. If his enemies all became god kings, then Jiangchen wouldn't have to face peak gods, but a group of god kings. I have to seize the time to cultivate. I have to shed my spiritual body as soon as possible and raise my cultivation realm. Jiangchen thought, see that? The people at that table are from the Light Master God's faction. Today, they're most likely here to inquire about High Heaven Pavilion. Someone pointed at a table in the corner of the inn and said, I guess the Light Master God is also anxious now. It's not just the Light Master God. Those people over there are from Kunlun Mountain. They're probably here for the same purpose, to inquire about High Heaven Pavilion. The inn was not big, but it was full of people. On the surface, the top forces of the divine world of 9 heavens were all here. Jiangchen even saw Chenjilu. Ever since this guy won without a fight, he had become the holy son of Ao Lai Heavenly Sect. His momentum was fierce, and he was vaguely suppressing the previous holy son. Now, Chenjilu was very famous. Someone said that the next sect master of Ao Lai Heavenly Sect was very likely to be him. Brother Jilu, what a coincidence. Jiang Chun greeted Chenjilu, raised his cup in the air, and said, Come, let me offer you a toast. Chenjilu's expression was strange. He didn't pay attention to Jiang Chun. In his heart, he didn't have any friendship with Jiang Chun. In fact, they even had some hatred. Hey, my boss is toasting you. Don't you have any reaction? Suddenly, a domineering voice sounded. Then, Wakako stood up from another table. There was another person with him. It was Dongfang Wushuang, who had the same holy body as Wakako. When did these two people get together? Jiang Chun was stunned. Could it be that they didn't get to know each other after fighting? At this moment, Wakako was angry. He walked to Chenjilu's side and slammed his palm on the table. He said, Do you think that you cannot give my boss face because he lost to you? Chapter 898. Wakako had always done things this way. To him, people could be disrespectful to him, but they could not be disrespectful to Jiang Chun. Moreover, Wakako had always thought that Jiang Chun could defeat Jiang Chun. In the previous battle, Jiang Chun was defeated without a fight. Wakako was really disgusted. Do you want to fight? Chenjilu lowered his eyes slightly and did not even look at Wakako. This attitude, I'm afraid this battle is unavoidable, Jiang Chun said with a wry smile. Wakako was the overlord. He was usually overbearing and arrogant. How could he tolerate this kind of person? The most important thing was that Wakako was now with Dongfang Wushuang. When the two overlords were together, they would be overbearing wherever they went. Holy son of the Aolai Heavenly Sect, do you think that you can be arrogant in front of the two of us just because you defeated that silly boy? Dongfang Wushuang immediately stood up and said coldly, Choose one between me and him. Fight. Yo, the two overlords are together. This is going to be a good show. Around them, a group of people's eyes fell on Chenjilu. They really wanted to know who Chenjilu would choose to fight with. And they knew that this battle was absolutely unavoidable. Since they had provoked the overlords, there was no way they could avoid the battle. What? Are you bullying me with numbers? At this moment, Tianzi walked in from the door of the inn. He was on good terms with Chenjilu, so he heard the voices from the inn. He walked to Chenjilu's side and glanced at Wakako and Dongfang Wushuang. A trace of contempt flashed in his eyes, and he said, Today, I'd like to experience the strength of the overlords. Okay. Dongfang Wushuang raised his eyebrows and said, I'll fight with you. Wakako and Chenjilu will fight. Whoever loses will lie down. Wakako said coldly. After saying that, Wakako suddenly turned around and looked at Jiang Chun. The arrogance and domineering aura on his face disappeared as he asked, Boss, can I fight with them? As you wish. Jiang Chun smiled and said, You have to have your own opinions. Should we beat him down or kill him? Wakako asked seriously. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was moved. Beat him down or kill him? Wakako was so confident that he could suppress Chenjilu. Even Chenjilu's expression became gloomy. He suddenly stood up and pointed at the door of the inn. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you at any time. I'll wait for you outside the town. What a coincidence. Before they could leave the inn, a red-haired young man walked in. He first nodded at Tianzi and Chenjilu. Then, He looked at Wakako and Dongfang Wushuang with a playful expression and said, I also want to experience the strength of the two overlords. The three of you can come at me together. The two of us will also take you on. Wakako raised his head, and his aura did not diminish at all. This red-haired young man is Tianzi's senior brother, the second holy son of Kunlun Mountain, Yin Linjiao. Many people exclaimed. They did not expect to meet the second holy son of Kunlun Mountain, Yin Linjiao. One must know that this guy's status in Kunlun Mountain was even higher than Tianzi. His strength was unfathomable. It was rumored that he was even stronger than Tianzi. Zhou Tianchong, why don't you go and help them? Jiang Qin frowned. Although he knew that Wakako and Dongfang Wushuang were very strong, Wakako would not be able to gain any advantage in a 2 versus 3 situation. He might even lose miserably. After all, Chen Zhulu and the other two were not easy to deal with. Each of them was a top genius. Otherwise, they would not have been able to become holy sons. What does it have to do with me? Zhou Tianchong rolled his eyes and said, Wakako is your little brother. If you want to go by yourself. If I fight, won't I expose my own strength? Jiang Qin said snappily. I still have to go to Lingxiao Pavilion to pay a visit later. It's just the three of us. Do you want me to go? Zhou Tianchong said in a low voice. They caused this, so they have to solve it themselves. My Jiutian sect is not a good person. Well, Jiang Chun turned serious. He thought to himself that if Yin Linjiao also joined the fight, he would have to join the fight too. However, if he really fought, Jiang Chun did not have the confidence to win. After all, Chen Zhulu and Tianzi had both broken through to the supreme god realm during this period of time. As for Yin Linjiao, he had even reached the middle supreme god realm. Although Jiang Chen's combat strength was strong, there was a limit to it. He was not a match for a supreme god realm cultivator. Sigh, this is so annoying. This damn heavenly sacred book. When will it help me break through to the next realm? Jiang Chen sighed helplessly. Count me in, okay? Suddenly, a little fatty walked in. He looked simple and honest, but his aura was extremely powerful. His whole body was emitting a golden light, and his hair was dyed with a layer of golden sand. This person was Jiang Lu. Behind Jiang Lu was an elder from the power sect. Most likely, they had come here to investigate High Heaven Pavilion's background. However, they just happened to run into this matter. All right, I don't have to fight, Jiang Chen said with a smile. This simple and honest guy is here. Look at you. You have a lot of confidence in the three of them? Zhou Tianchong asked curiously. No. Jiang Chen shook his head and said, I have confidence in the two of them. As for Dongfang Wushuang, what does he have to do with me? Zhou Tianchong was speechless. He rolled his eyes, then raised his glass and drank a few mouthfuls. At this moment, the atmosphere in the inn became somewhat depressing. The two sides faced each other, and no one walked out of the inn. However, after a few breaths, Jiang Lu scratched his head and asked honestly, Do you still want to fight? Do you want me to wait for you outside the town? Then, the simple and honest Jiang Lu took the lead and walked out of the inn. As soon as he walked out, Wakako immediately followed him, and Dongfang Wushuang followed closely behind. Chen Zhulu and the other two looked at each other, and without saying anything, they also followed them out. Obviously, today's fight was unavoidable. Wakako and Dongfang Wushuang have a good reputation now, but what about that little fatty? I remember that he seems to be silly girl's little brother, right? I only remember that this little fatty was defeated by the successor of the Emperor of Gods in the Great Heaven meeting. While talking, someone looked at Jiang Chun and asked, as the boss, aren't you worried about them? Worried about who? Jiang Chun was stunned. Then he reacted and said jokingly, You should worry about Chen Zhulu and the other two. Who knows how badly they will be beaten up? Tisk, even you, the boss, are not a match for Chen Zhulu. How can your little brothers beat them? Someone said disdainfully. Even if you want to save face, you can't let your little brothers get beaten up, right? Beaten up? Why don't you go out and take a look? You will understand when the time comes, Jiang Chun said with a smile. Don't you go out and take a look? Zhou Tiancheng asked. Why should I go out? The ending will be the same. What's there to see? Jiang Chun said angrily. The only thing I am worried about now is that they don't beat up Chen Zhilu and the other two too hard. Otherwise, it will be hard to explain to Kunlun Mountain and Aolai Heavenly Sect. Chapter 899. Jiang Chun did not go to watch the battle because he believed in Wakako and Jiang Lu. These two people had extraordinary opportunities after coming to the Ninth Heaven Divine World. Jiang Lu joined the Power Sect, and Wakako and Dongfang Wushuang became friends after a fight. Now, they had the Dongfang family as their backing. In addition, these two people's talent was close to monstrous, and they had a sacred body. Their strength could be said to be formidable. There was one more thing that Jiang Chun had to admit. Jiang Lu and Wakako's cultivation speed was very fast. Today, when they met, these two people's cultivation had stepped into the God realm. This was a huge blow to Jiang Chun. He had cultivated until now. Although his combat strength was extremely strong, his cultivation was still at the lower true God realm. Sigh, when can I break through? Jiang Chun sighed, his face bitter. All right, what's the situation with your realm? Why have you been stuck at the lower true God realm? Zhou Tianzhong asked curiously. Don't mention it. It's a problem with the cultivation method. Jiang Chun sighed. He did not know whether cultivating the heavenly canon was good or bad. Fortunately, he had shed a lot of his spirit body and would not be hungry often. Otherwise, Jiang Chun would probably starve to death. A problem with the cultivation method? Staying at the lower true God realm? Zhou Tianzhong frowned. Then his eyes flashed, and he secretly transmitted his voice. Heavenly canon? How do you know? Jiang Chun was shocked and stared at Zhou Tianzhong in surprise. This kind of thing can be guessed with a guess. Zhou Tianzhong explained, Realm has been stuck at the lower true God realm, but combat strength is stronger than ordinary profound God. Other than the heavenly canon of the heavenly canon, there is no other way. Hearing this, Jiang Chun could not help but fall silent. For a moment, he did not know how to explain. It was because the people of the heavenly canon understood one thing. Once their identity was exposed, they would become enemies with the world. Tianqin Divine King's identity is exposed. My enemies might only be those 36 top masters. Jiang Chun thought, if I am exposed as a disciple of the heavenly canon, then my enemy is the entire world. Thinking of this, Jiang Chun didn't know what to say. However, he also understood that Nine Heaven's heavy layer already guessed, moreover extremely certain. You don't have to explain. I don't care who you are. Zhou Tianzhong continued to transmit his voice. Although the two of them were at the same table, he still couldn't say these words out loud. I haven't experienced the calamity of the sky reaching school, but I have heard of it. Zhou Tian heaved a heavy sigh. The sky reaching school is a true hero. That? What do you mean? Jiang Chun asked, still using voice transmission. Nothing. Zhou Tianzhong sent a sound transmission. In short, I will not reveal your identity. You only need to understand one thing. In this Ninth Heaven Divine Realm, there are actually many top sects and even ancient powers that are standing on the side of the Tong Tian school. After saying this, Zhou Tianzhong waved his hand and stopped transmitting his voice. He changed the topic and said, It's been so long. Are you sure your two little brothers are fine? Nothing will happen, Jiang Chun said with a smile. This battle was not a battle of life and death. Even if they were defeated, it wouldn't affect them much. Moreover, Jiang Chun was very confident in Wakako and Jiang Lu. However, less than the time it would take for half an incense stick to burn after Jiang Chun had said this, someone entered the hostel and told him a piece of news. Dongfang Wushuang's right arm was cut off. The tyrant Wakako's skull was almost cut open, and his soul was almost destroyed. And that fool is now lying on the ground. No one knows whether he's dead or alive. Jiang Chun heard it clearly and immediately stood up. Not only was there doubt in his eyes, but there was also killing intent. He didn't understand. With Jianglu and Wakako's strength, how could they be defeated? He also didn't understand. Even if they were defeated, why did the other party still want to kill them? Your two little brothers don't look like much. Jiu Tianzhong didn't have any relationship with Wakako and the others. At this moment, his sarcastic remarks were more like mocking Jiang Chun. The two of them, even if they were defeated, they wouldn't be so miserable. Jiang Chun said in a low voice. Moreover, they won't be defeated. But you also heard it. They were indeed defeated. Jiu Tianzhong joked. What? You, as their boss, want to stand up for them? Do you need my help? I'll deal with my own brother's matter. In the depths of Jiang Chen's pupils, the brilliance of the sun and the moon flashed. It was more like a burning flame. He didn't believe it. Kunlun Mountain is quite sinister. They couldn't defeat the other party, so they sent out a few elders. The person who came to deliver the news shook his head and said, Kunlun Mountain is a top sect, but they can't afford to lose. Tisk. Oh? You mean that fool and Wakako defeated Tianzi and Yin Linzhao? Someone asked. That's right. The person who delivered the news said, Wakako is too powerful. In a few rounds, he directly suppressed Tianzi. As for that fool, he's even more amazing. Let me tell you, since the start of the battle, that fool didn't use any divine skills at all. He only relied on his physical body and threw Yin Linzhao to the ground. Those two are simply too ferocious. Later, the elders of Kunlun Mountain made a move. Dongfang Wushuang couldn't stand it, so he stopped them. Who knew that Kunlun Mountain didn't give the Dongfang family any face, and even Dongfang Wushuang was beaten up. And it was very miserable. When Jiang Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile at Jiu Tianzhong and said, Did you hear that? My two brothers are very strong. And then? Jiu Tianzhong asked with a faint smile. And then? Of course it's revenge, Jiang Chen said unhappily. He grabbed Jiu Tianzhong's sleeve and said, I'm now the Grand Tutor of the Jiutian Imperial Court. My status is higher than yours. Come on, if you want my help, just say it. Jiu Tianzhong teased. Let's go. With that, the two of them stood up and walked out of the town with Jiu Tianzhong. After a dozen breaths, when the two of them arrived outside the town, it was already filled with people. Some people were mocking Wakako and the others for being unable to withstand a single blow. Some were mocking Jianglu's ignorance, and some were marveling at the power of Kunlun Mountain. They didn't even take the Dongfang family seriously. Looking at the open space outside the town, Jianglu was lying in a pool of blood. His aura was dispirited, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Wakako was also lying on his back. His body was covered in blood, and his eyes were filled with anger. On the other side, Dongfang Wushuang was still standing, cursing at the elders of Kunlun Mountain. Obviously, Dongfang Wushuang was also furious. This world has always been like this. There's no fair competition. An elder of Kunlun Mountain looked at Jianglu and Wakako with contempt and mocked. Cats and dogs also want to challenge the dignity of my Kunlun Mountain? Are you worthy? You don't understand the world of the strong preying on the weak, and you don't want to accompany us. Another elder of Kunlun Mountain said softly, Today, I'll cripple you for the time being. Treat it as a lesson. Cripple, go ahead. But after crippling them, I can guarantee that Kunlun Mountain will no longer exist. At this moment, Jiu Tianzhong walked out from the crowd. His eyes flickered with a cold light as he said sternly, If you don't believe me, try it, but I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.